Hello and welcome to another episode of DCU Daily. We are back today with lots to talk about. We've got so much stuff from Booster Gold all the way to Lanterns. We're going to talk about the VFX story over the weekend. James Gunn decided to kind of, tell us about his approach to VFX and how he has always liked to give VFX artists more than enough time to do their jobs properly, to respect the work that the VFX artists do, so that we don't end up with people working 18-hour days, not being able to go home, and being underworked and or overworked and underpaid, I should say. We're going to talk about all of that. There's so much more even beyond that. There's a rumor about somebody getting cast for Supergirl, Rose Byrne, who had a show on Apple TV recently. Of course, she was in the Fox X-Men universe. We're going to talk about that. Is that a rumor that's worth exploring or not? We're going to get into that and so much more. Even beyond that, there's news about the Penguin Joker Follow You Do. They dropped a new poster, and I can keep talking. But before I do keep talking, I'm going to bring in John. How are you doing today?
So now
always,
they can hear me filibuster.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was surprised because the thing is, I'm usually pretty aware of all the news and all that shit. Like, obviously, that's part of the deal. But like, even then, I was like, usually I get like so much stuff from like friends of mine show me stuff, not because they know I do this, but like I'm a DC fan, so they're like, John, check this out, check this out, check this out. So, and I'm like a part of so many groups. I'm part of like a Superman group, so I'm like aware of it. But then like I saw like a couple things we're gonna talk about, but then there was like 50 other things. I'm like, where the hell did all this come from? So it's like, all right, we got a lot of ammunition, but like, sure, we'll talk about it. It'll probably be a 5-hour show, but we'll make it work. We'll make it work.
Yeah, we'll get into it. We'll definitely get into it. So where do we start, John? Let's see. One of the stories that came out not that long ago, this was actually 6 hours ago, I saw this earlier this afternoon on DC Film News. They were discussing an update. Now, here's the thing. There's a bit of a grain of salt to all of this, because we heard not too long ago from sites like DC Film News and others that, hey, Danny McBride and his crew from the Unrighteous Gemstones?
The Righteous Gemstones.
The Righteous Gemstones. I don't know why I thought it was the Unrighteous. But anyway, it's a show on HBO, and the idea was that these guys were gonna come on from and moving on from that show into basically coming on board Booster Gold and being the writing team attached to it. So the question became, well, is this true? Is this happening? Because we've had so little about Booster Gold, outside of this Trust Me Bro. Kumail Nanjiani is going to be playing the character Bro, and of course, him then showing up on at the Olympics alongside the rest of the cast and crew of Superman. But as far as like real concrete updates, we haven't heard much. Now, when we got this story a short while ago, we were like, it could work because it's comedy. Booster Gold is meant to be funny and like heartfelt. Danny McBride could do it, and John Carcieri, Jeff Bradley, those guys were supposedly in talks, but now it looks like they're no longer attached. And even though this post says that Danny McBride may be involved in some capacity down the line, but John, what are your thoughts on this? Was this ever really true? And if so, do you feel like it's a loss for them that they obviously these guys are talented, they've got a show on HBO. The Booster Gold is going to be a show on HBO and Max, so it would have been in the same under the same umbrella. What are your thoughts on this news?
So first off, this was kind of like grain of salt because I believe it was
Mm-hmm.
Nexus Point News that was saying that they were attached.
Yeah.
And I could see it. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of Danny McBride's comedy, but I think he has become more diverse in recent years. Like, he did those Halloween movies, which I enjoyed. I know not a lot of people like the sequels, but I thought they were all pretty good. So it shows that he has a little bit more range, whether that's successful or not, depends on the person. But like saying, let's say like it was grain of salt, but let's say like, okay, they were attached. I think if I were to take a guess in terms of why they ditched out, I have a strong feeling. So I think Righteous Gemstones season 4 is like production, like just wrapped or something like that. Like for season 4, I think it was like they just released like an image of season 4 like a couple days ago, like I think like 2 weeks ago. So I think season 4 is coming out soon. And I'm going to take a guess. I'm gonna this again. This is John theory time. That I think it has not been confirmed that season 4 is going to be the last season or anything like that. So my wild guess is they were like, okay, Booster Gold is probably not. It's not greenlit yet. So they'll probably like,
Yeah, and
okay, this
James
will
Gunn's
come
been
out.
very adamant about that. Like, nothing
Yeah,
is a go until it's greenlit. And Lantern specifically got greenlit not
Lanterns
too long
and
ago.
obviously
So yeah,
Peacemaker, but that was
Peacemaker.
like a
And Waller, I
leftover. So
guess,
that
too, because
was
that's
Waller
yeah.
is like kind of sort of greenlit.
It's
It's like you
okay.
have the writers working
Yes.
on it, but it's not like
It's not.
technically greenlit yet. So like it's like on the cusp. But like my guess was Danny McBride and company, they were like, okay, cool. This Booster Cold show, we have a couple years before this is greenlit, has pre-production, all the shit. So okay, cool. We're gonna agree to do the show. Meanwhile, we're gonna like work on season 4 or whatever in the meantime. Okay, great. But then I think behind the scenes, like HBO, I know HBO is still under Warner Brothers, but I think like HBO specifically was like, hey, I think they like secretly greenlit it for like a season 5. And so they're like, okay, I think so. It's like, okay, this is our bread and butter right now. Let's not work on a new show and let's stick with Righteous Gemstones because this is like kind of what we know. Booster Gold is unfamiliar territory. Maybe they don't know the character that well, all the other stuff. Who knows? I think HBO greenlit another season. We don't know it yet. And so they're going to focus on Righteous Gemstones season 5, and then Booster Gold will just go to somebody else. So that's what I personally think happened. I don't think it was like out of malice or anything like that. I don't think HBO was like, no,
It's
these
just they
guys
want him to
suck. We're not
focus.
going to do that. It's
Right.
just HBO's like, you know what? Righteous Gemstones. I have not
Yeah.
watched the show. I've heard it's really good. I've heard it's really funny. I've heard like Walton Goggins is great. Adam Devine, I think, or Adam Devine, I think his name is. I've heard he's really good. I think John Goodman's on the show. He's really funny. Like I've heard that it's a really good show, and it's been getting like a lot of views, getting good ratings, getting all that. So I think they're like, okay, you know what? Let's keep these guys this moneymaker right now that we have, because God knows Warner Brothers Discovery needs the goddamn money. So like, okay, let's keep these guys here. We'll just get somebody else for this. So that's what I think. I think HBO was like, okay, it's probably going to get a season 5. So guys, like if you want to, I would say stay here, but like we'll get somebody else for Booster Gold. And maybe Danny McBride is like interested. Maybe he's a fan. Maybe he, is intrigued with the idea. He hasn't done anything superhero related. It's like, okay, maybe like if Booster Gold isn't greenlit until like after even season 5, I'll be like, okay, cool. Yeah.
Right.
Danny McBride will be like, yeah, sure. I'll do Booster Gold, but like nothing's for sure. But that's what I think. I think season 5 was greenlit, and they're going to do that instead. If this is true at all, if this is actually true. So again, that's my personal theory. That's not for sure. I would just like to reiterate that that's my personal theory and speculation. That's not true at all. That's just my theory. But hey, that's just a theory.
It's
a film theory. Thanks for watching.
it's a good theory. It is, and you know what? Honestly, it makes a lot of sense because if they're working on this show that's so successful, and they would want to naturally, let's focus on that. And HBO has shown, a real, penchant, let's say, for focusing on quality over quantity. Something that you can't be said necessarily for some other streaming services, like Disney Plus, which just canceled Acolyte after, I don't know, like the Acolyte was not a good Star Wars show. But anyway, there's countless examples of stuff like that where you like Netflix throws everything at the wall, and there a lot of shows are good, but like there's definitely shows that are not so good. Whereas HBO, they really do put a lot of scrutiny into making sure their stuff is great. Like for example,
right.
We know there was like a whole pilot that they spent millions of dollars for Game of Thrones that they shot, which then they decided, you know what, this thing isn't worth it. There was some big, I forget the name of the big actress that was attached to it, but like they had some like A-list actors attached. It wasn't some like low level spinoff, and they just said, we're gonna can this thing, we're gonna start over. Then we got House of the Dragon. Now there's, I think, another spinoff that's on the way. But they clearly, have gone through the process of kind of narrowing it down so that only the best makes it through. On the DC side, we know that that's why they told Matt Reeves, hey man, focus on the Penguin and these other marquee characters that you've got in your universe. Don't worry about, Arkham Asylum or the Gotham PD series, and ultimately some of those elements may have made it into the Penguin series, which we're going to talk about later in the show. But like HBO has clearly has put the bar really high, and then David Zaslav and his team, when they came in with Discovery buying into Warner Brothers, they said we're gonna want to lean into that, and so far, Lanterns has been greenlit. Peacemaker, of course, is coming back. Waller is in development, but James Gunn, every time he gets asked, he says it's not really gonna be happening. It's not happening until it's greenlit, So even though like we're getting a script from Anna Nogueira, who wrote the script for Supergirl, she's writing one now for Teen Titans, another movie. It's not greenlit, Supergirl is greenlit, so that one is, there's a difference. I think if you want to put things into columns, you could say announced slash, in development, and then another column that says greenlit. And I think as far as greenlit goes, right now, under James Gunn, you can count them maybe on one hand. You got Supergirl, you've got Superman, of course. You've got, the Peacemaker, you've got Lanterns, and then
maybe
Waller. Is there a fifth? Maybe Waller, maybe
Waller. That's like 4.5. Let's go with 4.5.
4.5. That's
I do remember James Gunn saying, I believe it's Jeremy Carver and Crystal Henry are working on Waller. Carver worked on Doom Patrol. Crystal Henry worked on Watchmen. So I believe they're writing Waller right now. But that doesn't mean it's greenlit. They could just be writing it, and then HBO or Warner Brothers will just be like, yeah, no, this is not happening, and then they just got to throw some scripts out, or reuse them for something else. So writing it doesn't mean shit. So but they're clearly like working on it, but it's not like officially, greenlit yet.
No, I agree. By the way, Doom Patrol. Hugo Millie. That's a good name. That is a cool name. And Man of Steel Magnolias, you too have a cool name. Thanks, JB, for joining us live. Kazoo Rad, everybody who's watching, thanks for watching. Hit the like button, and of course, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. We do appreciate that. And yes, Doom Patrol, it was an amazing show. I still can't believe they canceled it, but the show also was on for several years, so I'm like, maybe they finally ran out of creative juice. But as far as the story regarding Booster Gold, it looks like we're kind of back to square one, because the Danny McBride potential involvement was the only thing beyond maybe the Kumail Nanjiani rumor, which doesn't seem to want to go away. We don't really know a ton about Booster Gold. It's not greenlit, as James Gunn has clarified. So until that happens, we don't have a ton to work off of. But hey, let's talk about Lanterns, a show that is greenlit. So recently James Gunn was asked this question, and James Gunn, being very well media trained, of course, he answered it. And I think you told me in our Slack chat when I brought this up, you were like, he somehow avoided, what was it, like every aspect of the question?
Yeah, he avoided every aspect of this question, yet somehow still answered it. Like, again, James Gunn, he's been part of Marvel. He knows like the bullshittery, fans, we literally, that's the whole show. Like, we weed out of every possible thing to talk about every analytical thing, and it's like, that's what we do. We're nerds. I know. So, and they just like, he's just like, is Lanterns in pre-production, or are you still casting? You cast in pre-production. How do you not answer, but also answer both questions? Like, that's just like, that's like some like Houdini fucking levels of like mind.
I saw your meme. You sent me the whole Matrix meme, and like, was it Mr. What's the name of it? It was
Agent Smith just bobbing.
Agent Smith is just dodging, like doing the whole like time bullet whatever effect. And I'm like, that is literally what James Gunn did with this, because it just, and then I read, then I stared at the answer for 5 minutes, and I was like, there's some information hidden in here. I'm like, I know there's something in here that matters, but I just can't put my finger on it. And it is literally that clever, because I mean, what is he saying? Is he saying that pre-production has begun, or that pre-production hasn't begun, or that
We
obviously
don't
he's
know.
saying
We
you can?
can't.
It's just I don't know. It's so good. It's frustrating to like. I'm like, this guy just knows how to, I
He
don't know,
knows how to
just
fuck
dance
with people,
around
but
the
like not in
yeah
like a bad way, in like a
subject.
good way to
Yeah.
be like, I'm going to wet your whistles, but I'm not gonna give you a drink. Like I know how to play with you guys, but like I don't want to demonize you guys either. So like I'll give you like a little bit, but that's it. So do with that as
Yeah.
you may.
Yep. I mean, guys, obviously, in the comments, let us know who you think they might want to cast potentially for Lanterns. In this thread alone, you've got Glenn Powell listed there as like the perfect. I mean, he practically, I guess, auditioned for the role if you want. As was what was the name? What was his call sign in Top Gun Maverick? Can't believe I'm
Rooster?
no
Hangman?
no that I think it was Hangman. You're right, it was Hangman.
Yeah, Hangman.
I was gonna say Iceman, but I'm like, no, that was Val Kilmer's. You know, but anyway,
Yeah.
that would be perfect.
No, he was Iceman.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about Mark Green from ER. That was Rooster, right?
No.
Or
It
was
was
or was it Miles Teller?
Miles Teller's character was Rooster
Yeah, it
because
was.
remember, as Goose, Rooster, it's like a whole thing. Anyway, as a Top Gun fan in the room, I can tell you there was a reference to the original movie. Hunter Iggy, by the way, with a question: have you heard that Amanda Waller TV series will be dark and more grounded? Will be connected to Batman: Brave and the Bold? I don't know.
I
It
did not
makes
hear that.
sense? What do you think?
Um, I mean that would make sense because Amanda Waller is a very grounded character. Like, I mean, yes, we've gotten like her associated with Peacemaker, and that was literally all about an alien invasion. So that's like, and I feel like it's gonna be like a very like dark like Black Ops kind of show. Like that's gonna like where we're gonna see Amanda Waller as like this darker figure that she's usually known as, rather than like what she was in the Suicide Squad and what little we saw of her in Peacemaker. So that wouldn't surprise me, and I would probably want to go for more of that. Because like the thing is with Waller, I don't want it. This was like one of the first DCU dailies we ever did, I think. Well, at least I ever did. Was talking about how Waller should not just be diet Suicide Squad. Kind of like what Creature Commandos is a little bit. Like I hate to shit on that show because like I'm excited for it and it looks
Mhm.
good, but it's like, oh, it's just Suicide Squad but with monsters. It's like, all right. Like we'll see. Like I'm still stoked. Like the animation looks great. I like seeing Cersei. I like the cast. I like I like the vibe. It's just like, oh damn, I wish it was more than just that. But well, I'll take it. Like it's like it's a nitpick, I guess. So like yeah, I do hope that it's more than just, oh, another Suicide Squad. So we're gonna get like a psychological character analysis of Amanda Waller and what makes her like not maybe what makes her like such a fucking horrible human being, but like just like kind of like maybe like a surface level dive into like this horrible why Amanda Waller is just so fucking terrible, but not like don't explain her backstory because we don't need to see that because like but it's just like it's so like inherently interesting how the worst person involved in the Suicide Squad are none of the villains that are actually doing the shit. It's the person that heads it. So that is just interesting. So I would like to like kind of analyze that a little bit with the Waller show. Um, but I don't know how it would connect to Batman Brave and the Bold though. The only thing I could maybe see from that is probably how there was the post credit scene in BVS where Amanda Waller was talking with Bruce Wayne, or was that Justice League? I think it might have been Justice League.
Wasn't it like one of the post credit scenes? No, was it Justice League or was it Batman? I don't know. Was it Batman versus Superman's post credit scene? I feel like
I don't
when he
remember.
talks to, I think it was because before the first Suicide Squad movie came out, so it must have been Batman v Superman. In the post credits, he's like, "You should shut down your operation. Me and my friends will do it for you," which was,
Then that
I
sounds
guess,
more Justice League, doesn't it? Because I think that Justice League was.
no, I think it was definitely BVS. It was one of the post credit sequences in BVS.
All right.
if I remember correctly. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's, I mean, but you know, it's a different universe. It's in the past.
Yeah, something like
Anyway, good question by Hunter. I think it would be interesting to see. Hugo Millie has another question. I mean, while we're on the questions, we're getting a little sidetracked. We have a lot to talk about. We will keep the ball rolling, but you know, while we are on the subject of questions, let's do that. Coming up next, we will talk about Joker Folly Do. But Hugo Millie, you asked what exact issue would require two Earth Lanterns to operate on Earth? Did Guy, dude? You know what?
oh my god,
Okay,
don't fucking get
Hugo,
started. Jesus Christ.
it's you know what? Okay, I just read the question for the first time all the way because it's okay. You know what? I don't know if Hugo you've been watching long
Take the
enough,
floor.
but like remember when these pictures first came out of Guy Gardner, and I was like, what is the synopsis? The synopsis for I'm gonna try to pull this up so I can kind of make my point. The synopsis for the Lantern series says that there's like some kind of murder that happens in the American heartland, right? And now this is when we were talking about the Superman, you know, movie shooting in Cleveland and stuff, and essentially in there they talk about they have been characterizing Metropolis as like a city in the American heartland. It's not like what they were talking about in, well, not in the DCEU where it was like, you know, the Twin Cities, Gotham and Metropolis are across from each other in the Bay. No, we're going more traditional. Like this is going to be Metropolis that's going to be in the heartland of the U.S. So that it kind of makes sense that, you know, Superman goes from Smallville, which is meant to be like in Kansas, to Metropolis, which is the nearest, you know, big city. So it very much fits in with the whole Cleveland, Cincinnati vibes, right? And that's of course where Superman got his start. Superman was born in Cleveland as a character. The writers, you know, created him in Cleveland. So I was saying, now let me pull this up here, right? So here it is. Lanterns follows new recruit John Stewart and Lantern legend Hal Jordan, two intergalactic cops drawn into a dark Earth-based mystery as they investigate a murder in the American heartland. I'm just saying, John. It's just is it a coincidence though? Like, you got two lanterns. I know that one of them is a legend, so maybe he's not really an active lantern, but and of course the other one's a new recruit. So maybe part of the show is going to be spent on we're bringing this new guy into the fold, sort of like a Men in Black sort of a moment, maybe, you know, where Tommy Lee Jones brings Will Smith's character in. Um, Maybe, but I'm still like, what sort of mystery? I'm just, you know, thank you, Hugo. Like, it's just see two different minds coming to the same sort of conclusion or speculation. Thank you, thank you.
Normally, I would say great minds think alike, but that would imply this theory is great, and it isn't. But
it is so great.
however,
I'm just saying.
however, we do have Tom King as the executive producer, and he's writing the show. And considering the fact that this man is unable to make a good DC story ever, so like I could see that happening because Tom King sucks. So you know, I could see like just this like fucking just immediately killing Guy Gardner after like one appearance. I'd be like, I could see Tom King doing that because he's an asshole and he sucks. So you know what? I could see that happening. And you know, like you have this fucking old like almost pitch perfect casting, pitch perfect look of Nathan Fillion, boom, bam, perfect. And then Tom King is just like, let's fucking kill him off because Tom King hates and is allergic to good stories and ideas, unless it's surrounding Vision. Outside of that, he can't do anything else. So I could see that happening.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Lenny, I just gotta say, happy birthday, my friend. Happy birthday. Hour 50. I think we realized this the other day. Lenny, you're like in the UK, right? So like this is it's like it's like 2 a.m. for you. Thank you so much for checking us out this late in your night. And yeah, it's been your birthday for a couple guys, everybody in the chat. Wish Lenny a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Lenny.
I think Jay got pissed. He heard me talking shit about Tom King. He's written a couple
Oh
comments
no.
of me like how much of an idiot I am because I hate Tom King. He's like, "Oh God, bye," and then I think he left. I think he got mad. He's like,
No.
"I keep shit talking Tom King." I'm sorry. Out of like 3 or 4 things I've read of him, he sucks. Heroes in Crisis was terrible. Mr. Miracle was like mid at best. And then what was the other thing I read? And then I tried to read Batman, his Batman run, and it fucking sucked. So like, I'm sorry, the man cannot write these. I did read the first couple issues of his Visions run for Marvel. That was really good. So maybe he can write Marvel. He just can't write DC. Same with Brian Michael Bendis. I did not like his Superman run. I didn't think it was very good. So that's what my like Marvel and sometimes you can have people write for both. Like I can't think of any examples, but like another good one, Mark Waid. Mark Waid literally, quite literally in the actual sense, wrote possibly the greatest DC story ever written with Kingdom Come. Arguably. I know arguably, but arguably. That to me, that's probably the greatest DC story of all time. But then many years later, he wrote that god awful Daredevil run. So like the dichotomy of man. All right, you could do greatness, but you could do shittiness. It's like,
But dude, everybody has a
like
bad day at the
thing.
office. It's
Maybe
possible.
I don't like a
I'm just
continual
saying.
that. I've heard that run is terrible. Like it's like so bad, and like I don't know, but like there just some writers just can't write for one or the other. They can't write either. God knows Gail Simone and Mark Millar, they can't write either. But I'm sorry, like I can't. Like I will give you the Visions. The Visions I have it on my shelf. I read it. My friend gave it to me for my birthday like years ago. I finally read it. Fucking great. So I know Tom King has written at least one good thing. And to the person that said he's not writing Lanterns, he is writing the show Bible with Damon Lindelof and Chris Mundy. And yes, Chris Mundy gives me hope. Damon Lindelof doesn't give me a ton of hope. He gives me more hope than Tom King. I will give him that. Like Damon Lindelof, I hate Damon Lindelof, but he gives me more hope than Tom King. And that's saying something. So I'm don't get me started on fucking Tom King, all right? I'm sorry. Like whenever I hear that man's name, I have to go on a rant because he sucks and he's overrated. Like I will
Okay.
on this bill.
All right. Well, you know what? To that end, it's James Gunn basically. I mean, the original story that we were
Anyway,
getting at. It's
happy
the
birthday,
whole.
brother.
Yeah, happy birthday, Lenny. Thanks so much for joining us late in your night. I hope your birthday's off to a great start. And Hugo for the question. You and me, man, we're on the same wavelength. I think Guy Gardner gets himself killed somehow, and that's why the Lanterns have to solve this mystery in the American heartland, which is literally Metropolis. I'm just saying. It's a good theory, and I'm willing to stick with my guns on that. But speaking of guns, Mike, speaking of guns, James Gunn did really stump us with the whole
Yeah.
with the whole you cast in pre-production. He just went into bullet time for a second and you cast in pre-production and just it's just, nobody knows. Nobody knows what that means. I guess that means we don't have a green. Well, you know what though? Okay, hold on. Green Lanterns. The Lantern Show has been greenlit. Sorry, there's a pun in there somewhere. Whatever. But Lantern Show has been greenlit, and that means that it must be going into pre-production. That because he has said that these scripts have to be done. Then you pitch the show with the Bible or the show Bible and everything, and then you get greenlit. So I imagine that means that because the show is not greenlit, that it is in pre-production, and therefore they're probably casting. So maybe that's what he means. Maybe that's the implication. I'm that's what I'm willing to believe. I mean, I don't know, but you guys could tell us in the chat what you think. But yeah, I mean, hey, look, one of the fans here on Threads pointed out perfect casting, right? Glenn Powell, it's his world, we're just living in it. Why can't he be, or Hal Jordan maybe? I mean, Hal Jordan but he's a legend, and I don't know, maybe they're looking for somebody a bit older. We have talked about it. Maybe somebody in their 40s, which is also what maybe takes Glenn Powell out of the Batman sweepstakes, because you're also going to get a slightly older Batman. Who knows? But we'll see where that goes. But John, we do have lots to get through, so let's keep the ball rolling here. There is a new poster there's a new poster released for the new Joker movie that's about to come out.
Yes.
Joker Fall You Do. They put out a new poster, which really lines up with all the marketing so far. The two trailers they've put out. The
Yeah.
world is a stage. Let's give the people what they want. Like that's literally what they're hinting at. And in this poster, the biggest thing that stands out to me is while they're dancing and stuff, we have seen this sequence before. What we haven't
I
seen is
feel
like
like
the blood spatter.
we've
You
gotten a
know?
variation of this poster. Like I feel like this is
Yeah.
familiar. I feel like we've gotten this like this is like a slightly different. Yeah,
Right.
this might be an IMAX poster, like a Dolby, because it says filmed in IMAX. So this might be an because they
Yeah.
usually IMAX posters are different from the regular posters. I feel like we kind of got this already, but like I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Like obviously it's tweaked, as you said, the blood splatter and all that. Blood spatter. I apologize. But yeah, like it's I don't know, like I feel like I remember seeing this somewhere. Like I remember seeing it, but it's a great poster. It's great. Like I
It is.
love like the vibe. I like how the blood is like in like a smile on Harley's face. We see the lines over her eyes. Um I love how like I love Harley's look in this. Like she's looking at him with like love but fear, and I really like that. Like you could see the fear in her eyes, but like as well as like some type of admiration for him. So I think that's interesting. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
just
I
noticing things about it.
I mean, of course, Joaquin Phoenix has gotten himself into hot water over all the wrong things
Oh
in
yeah.
recent days and weeks. Um, but yeah, it's uh, yeah, it's a good poster, by the way. Lenny, he's thanking everybody in the chat. Yeah, if you haven't wished Lenny happy birthday yet, please do wish him a happy birthday. He's out in the UK, 2 a.m. his time. It's 9 a.m. for us on the East Coast, so joining us this late. Yeah, always great to have you guys watching. Um, Thank you for commenting. As always, Fiona says,
Yes,
haha,
as
bullet time.
always.
Thank you. Bullet time is exactly how I would describe James Gunn
Good
dodging that
old
lanterns question.
good
Uh,
old bullet time. Remember that how that was a trend like in the early 2000s, like everybody was doing bullet time
yeah,
and it just became so fucking tired and it's just like anyway,
it
sorry.
was, yeah. Well, anyway, so I actually, you know what? In college, one of my professors who taught me, who I took a VFX course with, he taught a VFX class because he was doing his master's, and the dean of my school convinced him to teach a course, and that I guess maybe helped him with the cost of his master's. And so it was everybody, something for everybody. Um, and he was one of the lead production coordinators, one of the not the production coordinator, he was one of the lead VFX coordinators on the original Matrix movie that came out in 1999. So he had all this behind the scenes photos. I'm gonna get him on a podcast one day because he teaches out on the he went back to LA. He teaches out there now. And he worked on a bunch of other creature features and stuff like that in the 90s and early 2000s. But I think his name is Paul Taglianetti. If he happens to come across this sometime, shout out to Paul. And you can probably Google him or go on LinkedIn. He showed like how that whole camera rig to generate the bullet time sequence took like a good year, literally, for them to do that whole shot, the original bullet time shot. And today they do that all the time. You're watching the Olympics, you're watching any other sport where they have like they'll freeze a moment and then all of a sudden the camera will go around and give you that like look where some dude is in the air like breakdancing or something. And it's that technology is originates the whole idea of they've got like 100 different cameras, not 100 but maybe like a few dozen different still photography DSLRs taking pictures from all these angles in a circle, and then you piece them together and it basically creates this montage where you do a 360-degree look and at a frozen moment in time. It took them a year to do that shot for the original movie, and like so you're getting to see the behind the scenes of all that and like literally stuff that wasn't even in the Blu-ray, right? Because he was one of the people on the team. It's really cool stuff. We'll try to get him on the
Indeed.
show sometime to talk through his ideas and his what do we say, opinions on all these things. By the way, the God of Slayer Entertainment, thanks for joining us in the chat. Hope you'll subscribe and hope you hit the like button. What's going on with Phoenix? Lenny, just a quick sidebar. Joaquin Phoenix recently, days before filming started on a movie, he walked away from the movie and It was a movie that he convinced the producers to make. It was a gay rom-com, movie, which looked like, something that he was very enthusiastic about. He convinced the producers to, even get the ball rolling on it. They were like, we will make this movie if you're going to star in it, because you're Joaquin Phoenix, and they will make this movie work financially. Like, people are going to watch it because of your star power. They're going to go watch it on demand if they don't go see it in theaters. Days before the movie goes into production, he walks away, citing creative differences. I think it was, you can Google this and you'll find out all the information about it. And of course, now there's, I think, meant to be like a lawsuit happening, which rightfully so, the producers will want to get their money back, like millions of dollars that they put into, and all the crew that lost out on the jobs. Like, they were like, we're gonna be doing this for the next few months, like 2-3 months. And now, like, and they were saying no to all these other jobs they could have taken on, like the people in the camera crew, the people on, the sound guys, like, the guy in the hair and makeup department, the art department. All of those people now have like nothing to do. I'm like, and will they get compensated? Stuff like so. And in general, it pissed off a lot of producers in Hollywood, as it should, because you put a lot of money up for a movie starring, somebody like A-lister like a Joaquin Phoenix. Yeah. So in terms of publicity, is not a good look for him. It looks like they're probably going to settle outside of court, and he's going to end up paying, a bunch of millions of dollars. I mean, his payday on Joker alone probably will help him cover the cost of whatever the damages are to him. But yeah, probably. It's going to end up becoming something that, well, it's not ideal that, for him, for DC at least, he's got a huge movie coming out later this year, that he has this big PR blunder, and in general, just a bad move. But hopefully over time, over the course of the next few months, we can get some clarity in the situation. Joaquin Phoenix can maybe rehabilitate. Maybe he describes more of his reasons in public as to why he left the production. And of course, I'm sure they're gonna settle, and he's gonna end up paying out.
He saw a hamburger on set. So, that's why he left.
Yeah.
Is
that really what it is? Is that really what it is? I don't believe.
I'm just making fun of him being a vegan.
Anyway. Joker Follow You Do. There's a new poster. Let us know in the comments what you guys think.
I will say the one thing I did want to mention. Sorry, I was going to mention this, but then we went off on the whole Joaquin Phoenix tangent. I think it would have been a slightly better tagline, because it would feed into like the psyche of like the two characters. I think it'd be like better if it said the world is their stage, because showcasing that their illusion, their hallucinogenic, like sort of like not right mind, like the world is their stage, like they can do whatever they want because it's either not real, or if it is real, they don't care because they're mentally insane. So I think that would have been a slightly better tagline, but the world is a stage is still like it's still a good tagline. I'm just saying it could have been like a little bit better, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what? This movie is the next DC movie on the slate. Like, if you've already watched Deadpool Wolverine a million times, it's quite frankly, I think it's the next comic book movie, period, right? Because Kraven the Hunter comes. I mean, Joker Follow You Do. That's the next. I mean, there we go. Brendan Gleeson. He's
it's a couple.
I can't wait to marvel at Russell Crowe's Russian accent. He's a gangster.
He would have been a better Kraven than fucking Aaron Taylor. And I like Aaron Taylor Johnson. He's a really good actor, but he was very.
You know what it is? I think Aaron Taylor Johnson didn't get like jacked enough for that movie. Just going off the trailer.
God knows they did it for the photoshopped poster. They gave him a fucking like 12-pack, and
no. I'm like no. What I mean is like he does. In my mind, when I think of Kraven the Hunter, I don't think of like, washboard abs. I think of like bruiser, like boulder shoulders.
Yeah, like
we need this guy,
Jason Momoa, like something like that.
Yeah, or like if you remember the shape that Aaron Taylor Johnson was in for Tenet. Remember? Give him the beard. Like we don't need to make this guy look like he's scruffy, he's rough. The dude can beat you down.
You also have to show off that he's pretty. You have to show look at this pretty boy that we have for Kraven, even though that's against the character.
I don't know. But hey, look, Joker Follow You Do is where we were at before we get even more distracted. Let's keep the ball rolling here, guys. Aaron Taylor Johnson with Venom, we'll see how that turns out. But Joker Follow You Do comes out October 4th. There's a new poster out. The world is a stage for Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix. So let us know if you're excited about this movie, and because we will be talking about it, we'll be reviewing it, we will be covering any other news that comes out around it. But before we do that, let's get into our next story, John. We do have to talk about Michael Keaton. And what he said, quite frankly, I mean, when I read it initially, I'm like, oh, like he was like, I don't care. It was a nice big. Okay, I'm gonna read the quote exactly as he said it because it's on the screen. He was recently talking to GQ, and they were asking him questions with an interview. One of the things they asked him about was the Batgirl movie, which, despite the fact it was canceled like a year plus ago at this point, I think it was recently, maybe the 1 year anniversary of its cancellation or something like that. So maybe that's why they were asking him the question. But they were asking, hey, did you really care for that? Like, or not in so many words, but they were like, what was your reaction? And Michael Keaton basically said, I didn't care one bit on another. Big, fun, nice check. I like, the directors, Adil El-Irbi and Bilal Fallah, who of course had that new Bad Boys movie come out this year, and I love that movie to that.
And that,
watching it at home.
Like, I mean, I have no, like, I'm indifferent about Bad Boys. I'm like, I don't really care, but like, I just find it to be really funny that like the next movie that they did made, like, I wouldn't say like made a shit ton of money, but it made like
money though.
It was like
it
one of the
money,
first movies of the year to actually make like bank, like not Deadpool and Wolverine or Inside Out 2 levels, but like bank for Bad Boys 4. So,
I remember
like,
it was the first movie that sort of made above its expectations at the box office on opening weekend after
That's
the Furiosa flopped and a bunch of movies were just like underperforming. It was the first one that was like, you know what? The summer box office is back. And yeah, of course, they were the directors behind it. And then, Michael Keaton went on to say, like, sorry, go ahead. You were saying.
No. Yeah, that's essentially and then it also kind of reminded me of like how, Christopher Nolan yeets himself to Universal, and then, he makes like the biggest movie of his fucking career that also sweeps the fucking Oscars, while Warner Brothers Warner Brothers, they made a shit ton of money on Barbie, but they didn't win like a single Oscar or anything like that. And like he just made fucking bank. And then same thing happened with Scott Derrickson when he left Doctor Strange 2,
and then
they got Sam Raimi. He went on to do Black Phone, which was like made a lot of money for a horror movie. And then like Multiverse of Madness, even though they got Sam Raimi, it fucking like tanked and it was like garbage. So like I just like seeing big corporations get fucked. That just brings warmness to my heart that I love to see. And same thing with these guys. Like, like after they lost this movie, and it could have been good. It couldn't have been any worse than The Flash. I will fucking say that. But like it's nice that they got a win, even though they lost this movie. They lost access to this movie.
Yeah.
It's nice that like at least with their next movie, they got a win and they got a good like it's like a consolation prize. I guess they got a good movie, and I'm sure they're gonna have illustrious careers after this. And it sucks, but it's like, it's a nice like subtle fuck you to Warner Brothers a little bit. Like, oh hey, their next movie actually made a shit ton of money. You made a mistake. Meanwhile, The Flash tanked, Shazam tanked, Aquaman fucking tanked. Blue Beetle fucking tanked.
Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom did make like $500 million, close to it. So
my god,
it was the highest grossing DC movie since Black Adam. But anyway, the point is, Michael Keaton continued on to say, they're nice guys. I pulled for them. I want them to succeed. And I think they felt very badly, and that made me feel bad. So Michael Keaton does have this very like dry way of talking about things a lot, and he kind of tells you what he feels. He's not gonna like sugarcoat it. He was like, I didn't care one way or another. I got a big fun nice check. He was probably on set for a few days, that's about it, and he got paid probably very handsomely for it, according to himself, of course. But he does root for these guys, and of course I think they're back on track with the new Bad Boys movie. There's gonna be another one. There's probably going to be several more if they keep making this kind of money that they did this year. And who knows? I mean, you know what? Even then, when Warner Brothers canceled the film and then ultimately shuttered it completely, and to the point of locking it away so nobody could ever get a hold of it, they did say that the decision wasn't because of the talent or the work of the actors or the cast or crew members. It wasn't because they explicitly made sure to say that. And how sincere they were or not to that, because you're making a statement by saying we're going to shelve this movie for the sake of getting a tax rebate, but also because we don't want this to be a stain on the DC brand, which is already struggling.
Well, The Flash.
I mean, how does that not
bigger stain? But like,
anyway, but the point is, Adila Irby and Bilal Fallah will get plenty of opportunities based on their resume that they've got. And Michael Keaton, he's, you know what? He did get to play Batman again. And quite frankly, I thought that was my favorite part of that movie, was getting to see him back, regardless of how the rest of the movie went in The Flash. And, we'll get to see, hopefully, Michael Keaton, be back in some kind of Crisis and Infinite Earths crossover in a way that feels, more iconic and memorable down the road once the DCU is established. So we'll hopefully get back to that. But in the meantime, John, there is one other piece of news. This is now as we are going across the spectrum of DC with all the DCU projects that are ongoing. Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow is one of the upcoming films. It's the next movie after Superman. It comes out in summer of 2026. And in that project, we've been talking about VFX artists. We're going to be talking about James Gunn's view on VFX as a whole. So recently on IMDb, we saw, Jeffrey Bowman listed as the VFX supervisor for Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Of course, I was talking about one of the VFX supervisors on The Matrix earlier, who I had the privilege of being taught by in college. But, Jeffrey Bowman has a pretty decent resume. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Ghostbusters Afterlife.
I would say Ghostbusters
Those are
Afterlife.
Three big franchise movies. What are your thoughts on him joining as the VFX supervisor for Supergirl? Of course, another person who's got Marvel pedigree. James Gunn has Marvel pedigree. He's probably crossed paths with him before. Although Black Panther and Wakanda Forever were not James Gunn projects, I bet you that the fact that he's worked on those large scale projects with budgets of 150 million or higher, it helps him kind of brings the right kind of pedigree and experience to Supergirl. Which, if anything, to me, that says they're treating this movie like the big feature production that it needs to be, and the fact that it's going to be on the same level as Superman in terms of the kind of hype that's going to be put behind it, the production value, the resources that are being invested into it. What are your thoughts on him joining this project? Is just this another, let's keep the ball going, this is great, more adding more talent is great, or do you see any more significance to it than that?
I'm okay. I think in terms of his newest work with Afterlife, which came out a couple of years ago, I think that's pretty good. That's good. I've never seen Wakanda Forever. From what little I watch of it, like the effects seem okay. But Black Panther is a little worrying. However, I don't think it was his fault.
That the final fight sequence looked animated. Yeah.
The entire fucking final fight sequence looked like PlayStation 2 graphics. Like it
wasn't PlayStation 2 graphics. Maybe PlayStation 3 graphics, but I see.
I don't know about that. Like good PlayStation.
Dude, I remember PlayStation 2 graphics. Like, let's not get it twisted. That's a step down.
No joke. I've seen better better cutscenes from like Grand Theft Auto 4, like than what was in fucking Black Panther. And however, with how Marvel is with like not giving their VFX art, like, I mean, we're going to be getting into that soon enough, but how they just are terrible to their VFX artists. And I believe I remember reading that like the whole Black Panther sequence was like done in like a couple weeks, not even. And so I don't think that was his fault. I think he was under time crunches. I think he was under a lot of pressure. So I'd like to think that he is talented and that was just a blip and it was just Marvel's fault. It was not his fault why Black Panther looked as horrible as it did. Especially when it cost more than Aquaman, and Aquaman looked a trillion times better despite the majority of that movie taking place under fucking water. So, I will give him the benefit of the doubt for right now because Ghostbusters Afterlife, the monsters in that movie looked really good. And the CGI, I will say, looked good. And because the reason that looked so good, it was like a mix of practical and CGI. And even then the CGI looked really good. So I will give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to say, oh, Black Panther looks horrible, this guy's horrible. I don't want to say that. Black
Panther was pretty good, dude. Outside of that final sequence, I thought Black Panther had some really, really good VFX. Like it's just, and you know what the thing is, we always look at the stuff that looked fake, but these movies have thousands sometimes VFX shots, right? if you're watching a 2-hour movie, chances are there's at least hundreds, if not thousands, of VFX shots in it. And there's so many invisible VFX that we don't even realize that we're watching something that's a piece of VFX. And people need to be given credit for that too, because I mean, for the 3 or 4 sequences where we think, oh my god, that's bad VFX, there's like 1,000 others there we don't notice. So you got to give them credit where credit's due. They still do a lot of great work that often goes unnoticed. So I think I'm looking forward to Jeffrey Bowman adding and contributing to the DC family. He's got a great pedigree with superhero movies and with big franchise productions, both over at Marvel, Disney, as well as of course at Sony. And now he comes over to DC and Warner Brothers. Let's see what he can do with Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, which of course is coming out in July of 2026. So we are less than 2 years away from it. So it's good to see that they're starting to bring talent on board, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. So let's see where that leads us. But of course, now it's time to talk about the big news of the show, the main story, the headline story, which is James Gunn. Now, okay, I'm gonna give you guys some background on this. So hang with me here, John. But this was a couple of years ago that a story broke online, and this story had to do with how Marvel's VFX artists were being treated terribly. There was a couple of VFX artists out there who came out and talked about their experience working on Marvel projects, how there was just extremely poor working conditions, and not necessarily something where Kevin Feige was directly telling them you need to work like 18-hour days, but there were just a lot of VFX houses that get worked sent to them as third-party vendors working on Marvel projects. And it's so competitive. There's a lot of VFX houses that undercut each other on pricing, and what that results in is these VFX houses have to turn around shots, oftentimes getting late notes, and they just have they're getting paid on the overall work as a flat rate rather than, oh, if you need like another round of revision, we're going to pay you extra. So what ends up happening is these guys end up working 18-20 hour days, sleeping at the office, not being able to even take bathroom breaks, the kind of things you hear about from
like
Amazon warehouse workers.
Boom, perfect timing.
It's crazy. So ultimately what ended up happening with that is, as a result of all of that, just turmoil, and because of course social media and everybody was in uproar, like these movies that we just love, what is going on with these VFX artists that put together literally sometimes 75-80% of the film, which wouldn't look good if the VFX artists weren't involved. People wanted, justice by them, rightfully so. And these VFX artists should have good working conditions. They should be unionized like so many other people in other departments, like the art department, the camera department, the actors. If you have guilds for the producers and the directors, IATSE has been negotiating this year with the producers and unions. So why don't we have that for VFX artists? And then this happened, I believe this was early, I think it was last year, I believe this happened, where VFX artists finally voted to unionize over at Marvel. Now, of course, these weren't necessarily VFX artists who were working, third-party studios that are getting, contract work from Marvel Studios, but they were the VFX artists that were in-house, the in-house team at Marvel. They unionized. And they unionized, I believe, under IATSE, there's a unit of IATSE or something. So, which is great to know that. But all of that to say, James Gunn was recently asked about this, about how the last few years overworked and underpaid VFX artists. This is from Sire Mark on Threads. These VFX artists have been forced to work with very tight deadlines, which has led to understandably bad CGI in a lot of big budget movies, principally Marvel, but of course this has been true for other big studio projects as well. Do you plan on taking a different approach with your DC films? And James Gunn responded to that by saying, if you do some research, you'll see my films have always taken a different approach, and I've always given my VFX artist collaborators time to do their jobs properly and the respect they deserve. And the quality of the VFX in those films is uniformly great because of it, and because my friends at Veta and Framestore and ILM, which are the three of the bigger, the biggest VFX studios in the world, and more, are amazingly talented. So James Gunn, of course, both giving credit where it's due and also mentioning that, he accounts for this. And then he responded later, basically pointing out exactly what we have been saying for the longest time, especially when you compare it to like other movies like Fantastic Four, which is going to come out literally 2 weeks after Superman went into production on the same day that Superman wrapped production. James Gunn said this is why we wrapped on Superman a year before release, and why they've been hard at work on many shots for months before that. Because of course, for some of the shots, they don't even need to wait until the film is done shooting. you could start, some shots might be completely CGI, so they're gonna have, pre-prod that they would have, done previs on it and just prep those even while the movie was shooting. Some shots were probably, put into VFX production while the movie was already, still shooting new scenes, because they probably shot that stuff early on, like when they shot in the Nordics, like they were out there in Svalbard. So yeah, and the James Gunn, he went on to say that, hey, this is why we start heavily heartily editing during the shoot. That's why I prepare so vigorously, and why we only shoot finished screenplays. And Supergirl, which I'm not directing, is being handled the same way. I can't praise the VFX artist that helped us create magic enough. So James Gunn, of course, has all the respect in the world. We're gonna give that message a heart there, because it deserves it. And he's, of course, not just talking about it. You can see it, and just, you don't need to be
look at the guy below him, Mike Prime. He's saying, speaking as one of those VFX artists, thank you for being one of the seemingly few, not throwing us under the bus and pushing the no VFX / everything is practice. Well, okay, I'm not gonna.
Well, that's another conversation.
I disagree with that, but like,
yeah, but still, it's great to see that. I mean, John, what are your thoughts on the idea that James Gunn, of course, not only is he talking the talk, he's walking the walk. Superman is done filming. It finished the same day that Fantastic Four at Marvel started filming. So they've got a year. Like when they finished filming, they had a full year. Now they're less than a year. They have basically a year to finish the VFX, and were already working on, according to James Gunn, a lot of the VFX even before filming finished. So it's what's the saying, like something is in the pudding, like it's the proof is in the pudding. So the proof is in the pudding, right? Like what are your thoughts on James Gunn and overall just the approach at VFX at DC?
I mean, I'm just gonna say this. I'm gonna say this. I've been saying this for a while now. Like, I've been fucking saying this like for a while, like in terms of how James Gunn is approaching this, because I said that Superman I said this during, I think, an Oh So Curious show. I think I said this a couple times during DCU Dailies. It's like we're getting a year. That means a year. And this confirms, because I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt, at least, like, oh, maybe reshoots, maybe second unit, maybe all that shit. Even then, that still gives us a lot of time. But I'm like, even then, that gives us a year. However, he's saying he don't do reshoots. He's saying he doesn't even, it's done. It's done. So like, it's a full fucking year for editing and VFX work. And you know what? Say what you will. I know there's probably tons of James Gunn haters in the comments. Like, even the biggest James Gunn haters be like, okay, you gotta respect that at least. Like, I like, we're getting a full year of these guys working on this movie to make sure that it's the best looking. And I said that, like, I was like, there's so much of this movie that gives me hope. Now, obviously, it could be a nice looking movie that sucks. Like, like, at least it'll be nice looking. At least it'll look great. Like, Guardians 2 is still my favorite MCU movie. And one of the many reasons why that movie's so good, like, look back fucking on any of the scenes on Ego, on the Living Planet, it looks so fucking good. Even today, by today's standards, those scenes still look fantastic. Like, oh my God, there was this great scene where I think Gamora is like kind of like kneeling. She's like sitting, and then there's like a scene where like a piece of like plant is like annoying her, and she just like slices it, but it's just this big grand like landscape shot, and it's just, you could put that shit on your fucking wall. God knows I have enough shit on my walls, but I'm just saying, like, you could put like that shot on your wall and it would look great. Like, that looks like it looks like a Tim Sale thing. Like, it looks like the famous Tim Sale shot with from Superman for All Seasons. It looks beautiful. And you know what? That was 7 years ago, and it still fucking looks good. And I've been saying, like, giving them a year. Give a year is fucking fantastic. And then on top of that, you also have, and pretty much confirming, because he does mention Supergirl here, pretty much confirming what I was saying a couple days ago, how how Supergirl is delayed, not by much. I mean, it's getting delayed until January.
Well,
Like,
but
all
the
right,
thing is, they never really said that they were gonna be
yeah, like
filming like at a
people,
certain date.
because
It's just
it's
it's
people wanting to shit on this, like, oh,
yeah,
it got delayed, but it's like we never got the initial thing that it was filming at any point. So like, delayed from when? Like, when was it gonna be filming? I just heard it was January, but they're like,
yeah.
oh, delayed. But that's beside the point. If so through March, well, one day in February, but March, April, May, June, July, 5 months. Let's give them 4 to 6 months. Let's give them 6 months because there's a lot of like green screen stuff because it's pretty much the entire movie is going to allegedly take place in space anyway. If we're going by specifically the comic, then then we're going to be getting 6 months of filming, and then what's 6 months after January? If it is filming in if you're counting January, what's that? June, maybe July. That again, Supergirl's coming out in June of 2026, and if it's filming in 2025, January to June, guess what? That's another year, basically confirming, James Gunn confirming that, yeah, despite that delay of a month or whatever the fuck it was going to be, then we're still going to get that entire year of filming, post production and VFX. Now, depending on, now, to be fair, I know James Gunn, he says how he makes it work is he doesn't do reshoots, all that shit. But Craig Gillespie is a different filmmaker. Maybe he likes doing reshoots. Maybe he does. I don't know. But he has a whole other, even though we're getting a completed script by Anna Noguera, he could be doing things differently. But at the same time, we're still getting an entire year. And even James Gunn said they've been working on some VFX shots even during production. So we're still getting those shots too. So it's technically more than a year. So if it's being aimed the same way that James Gunn is simply confirming right here, then I think this, at the very least, in terms of a technical aspect, in terms of post-production, in terms of VFX, we're in good hands, I feel. Because this is a guy that worked on 3 movies that took place in space, where pretty much 90% of the movie was filmed in a blue box. So, like, I think and exactly what JB was saying. I was going to mention that. Thank you for putting that up, because I was literally just going to say, and some people wonder why James Gunn is a C, because like he understands, like, at least from the technical aspect of why these movies work, because it's not just like a Western where you can go to like in the middle of nowhere and film that for like a month and then be fine. It's not that. I mean, not saying that's a bad thing. That's a great thing because I love me a good old Western, but it's a whole other genre of filmmaking. And in order to create these feats that cannot be seen, then we have to give them the time of day. They want to make us believe that, once again, a man can fly, or in Supergirl's case, a woman can fly. So you know what? If it needs a year, then please give us a year. And I think it's going to need less than that. But even then, if that's the case, then that's another major thumbs up, because fuck test screenings. That's beside the point. But I think if I don't know, Hunter, you say a lot of stuff, so I don't know where you get this info, but like you seem to be like an inside source because you keep saying all this stuff. But like if that's true, then definitely, that's definitely exciting, because test screenings more often than not are like the bane of my existence because they more often than not ruin a fucking movie, because like a lot of times they completely change the director's vision, they completely hack up like the movie, they don't market it properly. Because I remember a little bit of a side tangent, there was this movie, it was a really small horror movie called All the Boys Love Mandy Lane, and I've heard it's a good movie despite having Amber Heard in it. I've heard that was a good movie, and the problem is they like threw this movie onto like, I think it was like on the shelf for like 5 years, and then they threw it on like video on demand like
I
like
remember, yeah.
years after that. And the reason for that is they held a test screening, this one test screening, you know who it was filled with? It was filled with old people who didn't like
Mhm.
horror movies. And they're like, oh,
That's a terrible, like, somebody's not doing their job properly if
based
that's, I
on
mean,
this,
come
this
on.
means this movie's gonna fail. It's like, are you kidding me? And I'll bring up another example. Sorry, again, a side tangent. I fucking hate test screenings. It just another one was the movie Sinister. I don't know if you remember this movie. Ethan Hawke,
Oh.
great movie. Scott Derrickson, actually.
Mhm.
Um, very underrated. I know a lot of people shit on Blumhouse, and fair. They have a lot of bad movies, but Sinister is a great movie. Like if you haven't seen it,
Mhm.
very underrated, very good. Um, they did do test screenings, and the first one was filled with horror fans. And guess what? It went smoothly. It went positively. And guess what? The producers could not give less of a fuck. One was on his phone, one left halfway through the movie because people weren't complaining. They weren't negatively shitting on the movie. And like one guy wasn't paying attention, like they didn't care because it's like, oh, people are speaking positively. Why do we care? We have nothing to meddle with. So what's the point? The second test screening, ironically, they didn't even show up to, and that's when the people who were not horror fans came in and were complaining about the movie, dumbass nitpicks that didn't make sense. So it just goes to show that these producers do not care if this movie, if like a totally separate issue of like, we don't care if it's positive. We just care if people are nitpicking, and that gives us an excuse to meddle with the director's vision and completely stick our fingers into something that where it doesn't belong. Now, once in a while, it does work. Like for instance, the only one I could think of, only two I could think of is First Blood and Exorcist 3. Or those were the only ones where I think it benefited the movie because they wanted an exorcism in Exorcist 3 in that climax, and William Peter Blatty just went full on crazy with it. If you've seen Exorcist 3, you know what I'm talking about. Great
Mhm.
movie, one of my favorite horror movies of all time. And it when he's like, all right, you want an exorcism? I'll give you a fucking exorcism. And he just went completely crazy, carte blanche, went insane with it. And it's like one of the most memorable sequences throughout the entire movie. So that was that. And then First Blood, they did change the ending so that you know, I think it was he didn't die at the end, spoiler alert, for a 40-year-old movie. But great movie, but I think that was a good thing that they didn't showcase that because Sly Stallone said years later, he's like, yeah, we didn't want veterans like showing that they had no like reason to live. And so we wanted a more positive ending and not have Rambo dying. So
Oh,
like that,
dude, I 100% agreed with that. Yeah. Good,
yeah,
great choice on their
like
part.
even though
Yeah.
I feel like him dying works better, I'm like at
It would,
time
yes.
like 10 years after the Vietnam War, let's not
Mhm.
showcase that the only way
Right.
out of this is dying. So like okay, like I'll give them that. But outside of that, like more often than not, like when you have a test screening, you have these people who are not fans of this stuff, who are not like into this sort of thing, you're gonna get a worse product because then studios can like, oh, now we can meddle with this vision all we want and blah 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 and all this other shit. And that's just never, almost never good. Like 9 times out of 10. I would say 9.5 times out of 10 is never good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and
I know that was just a thing.
yeah.
I know that was a side tangent. I apologize, but like if
It's
that's true,
yeah.
gimme, yes. No,
And to that end, Hunter, we haven't seen this anywhere, so we'll take your word for it. But I don't know if it's true that they're not going to do any test screenings if it's not part of James Gunn's process. But JV did have a question in the meantime. He was asking about like, do you think James Gunn's going to make Superman subtly or overtly patriotic or neither? And maybe the soundtrack could reflect that classical, American music hits, like something you might hear at a baseball game.
right.
To that, here's what I will say. I think Superman has to appeal to the whole world, even if he is, an American icon, which I think is a given. That's a part of. You look at this. There's a picture of Henry Cavill wearing the Superman suit with the big American flag behind him that was used in the promotion and marketing. It's always going to be a part of Superman's identity. At the end of that Man of Steel, he's like, "I was born in Kansas, General." Like the whole idea that
That's where,
like,
and
are you going to
even funnier, that's when Henry Cavill's British accent slips out during that
slips
line,
out.
which always
The
makes
irony of that. But yeah, and even in that Superman movie, what a lot of people look at as like, that's probably the least Superman movie they've ever seen. Even then, being an American icon is a part of it. I don't think you need to beat people over the head with that idea. I think it's inherently a part of who Superman is. He's in the American heartland. He grew up in Kansas. He's the blue Boy Scout in a lot of ways. And I don't think you need. I mean, yes. I mean, as far as the soundtrack goes, if you go by what James Gunn has used in the past, he's always on point with the soundtrack choices. So I'm sure we'll get some classic American hits.
Yeah.
Maybe some of them will sound like ones you might hear at a baseball game in the summer. It's gonna come out. The movie comes out in July, peak baseball season.
I do hope that we
So
don't get too much of like James Gunn's Spotify playlist. Like as much as I love the Guardians
yeah.
movies, and I think that having those hits work because that's part of Star-Lord's character. I don't think we need to like hear like a fucking Redbone song or a Fleetwood Mac song just in the middle of this. Like I hope he lets the composer, unfortunately I'm forgetting his name, just like kind of do his job. And because like the thing is, this composer, he's not like a famous composer. Like oh, he's like a fucking John Williams. That dude is like, even people that don't know movie music know John Williams. And that dude has more Oscars, more iconography to his name than any composer, any movie
he's the
composer
goat. He's the
ever
goat.
fucking
Like
lived. Like he is. Personally, he's a little bit overrated, but he's still great. He's still great. Like I would say
you
Jared
can't
Goldsmith,
deny that he's the goat.
but you can't fucking like Superman's like, and you have to let that composer speak for himself because that man should like both, and that also doesn't help that fucking Hans Zimmer score, also excellent for Man of Steel. That man's shoes are the size of a football field. This dude is probably on fucking suicide watch because like this dude has like such massive shoes to fill in terms of like these two legends that he has to like succeed. Like that's like insane. Like I don't envy this man. Like I don't even remember the guy's name. Like John Williams,
John Murphy,
John
Murphy. Well,
so like you have him, and it's like not nearly as so. Like and with that, like you gotta let this man's music speak for itself. You gotta, Okay, I do know John Murphy. I was thinking, who I was thinking of? I was thinking of the goddamn cinematographer. I think it was like Henry something. But John Murphy.
Yeah.
John Murphy is great. He did do Sunshine, great movie. But he and I believe he worked with Danny Boyle a lot.
And
so John Murphy's very good. Even then, he's not to the caliber of the two biggest, John Williams and Hans Zimmer. So I feel like James, I love you, but please, for the love of God, just let John Murphy's score speak for itself. And usually John Murphy does very dark and nihilistic scores. So I'm very curious with how he does Superman and how he does this character, because like, gotta let it speak for itself. And I don't know if he'll do a patriotic. I think John Murphy's British, actually. So I'm curious with how he does. I mean, Hans Zimmer was too. So like, not like that matters, but like, I'm just saying like how he like views that. And I was thinking that like, I think he's going to have it be like slightly patriotic, because for all the times I've seen James Gunn talking about Superman and his famous catchphrase, he always says, this is James Gunn. Don't yell at me. Just yell at him. Thank you, Man of Steel. Magnolias, Sunshine, amazing. I don't care what people say. The third act is still as good as the rest of the movie. A little weird, but it's still good. Like the whole movie's good. Anyway, so with John Murphy, I think what I do. Yes, again, guys are making me go on. I can't think. Hold on. I was gonna say something, but yeah. Fuck, I forgot what I was gonna say. God damn it, guys, you're distracting me. But yeah, I think. Oh yes, James Gunn talking about. So in terms of the patriotic thing, he was talking about. Again, the famous catchphrase: truth, justice, and what? Now, in this day and age, because people hate America now,
it's
say
also, you gotta appeal to the world. You can't just be touting America, everything. I'm just saying.
Better tomorrow. I feel. I don't know. It just seems kind of lame to me. But, however, what James Gunn has said whenever he says truth, justice, and he always mentions the American way. He always says truth, justice, and the American way from the few times I've seen him quote that catchphrase. So I don't know. I just think he's going for more of that traditional like vibe, and he might insert more like patriotic stuff in there. Not like super duper like fucking greatest country of all time, blah blah blah. Yes, John Murphy did the first Kick-Ass. Great stuff. But yeah, so I think he is going for more, maybe a little bit more patriotic. I don't know if it's like going to be super duper, but like I think he's going for more of that vibe. So, and John Murphy, this man, I don't envy him. I don't envy him at all.
Dude, I'm just, you know what? Like, this is, remember when Michael Giacchino signed on to do the Batman, and everybody was like, Danny Elfman, Hans Zimmer, you know, even Junkie XL with like the Ben Affleck Batman.
Elliot Goldenthal, very underrated with his Batman.
Yeah, it just, and you're like, okay, well, what is this Batman music gonna look like, right? And then we got that whole suit reveal, and then they threw in some of the music in it, and you were like, you know what? That's it.
His score was the best part of the movie.
I had today. You're like listening to Nirvana all of a sudden. Like who knew that you would associate Nirvana with Batman in 2024?
The whole score was excellent. Like I listened
the whole score was excellent. Yes.
I listened to that entire album multiple times. I had no like hesitation. I'm like, okay, Michael Giacchino, very interesting because I would love to see Michael Giacchino do a Superman score because I think he would be perfect.
Well, dude, he's gonna be on Fantastic Four 2 weeks after Superman, so John Murphy goes up against Michael Giacchino next year.
Yeah, hopefully they actually utilize his score, unlike Taika Waititi's with Thor: Love and Thunder. Fuck you for that. I think like Michael Giacchino, I just feel like with the going back to his like Incredibles score, like that's a very like very old school traditional like kind of 50s vibe that they were going for. I just think he would be perfect for Superman. But even then, I'm like, Michael Giacchino, interesting for Batman. I never would have I would love to see Thomas Newman do a Batman score. I think he would be excellent for that.
Yes.
But I'm like, okay, Michael Giacchino. I'm like, I could think he could. I'm like, my man, I know he can do it because Giacchino, he's the GOAT. He's the GOAT now. Like he is the GOAT of the 21st century. No holds barred. That's what I think. You know, but like, I'm like, okay, let's see. And then I fucking listened to this fucking score. I'm like, this man can do no wrong. Like, I knew he could do no wrong beforehand, but I was listening to this. I'm like, Giacchino, you had like, he does like very like light, breezy scores, like very like pepped up. And then he just turns around and does the Batman. I'm like, Mike, buddy, what happened? Who hurt you? Did you just like did you pull a Heath Ledger and just go into a hotel room for like a month and just like was alone with your thoughts? Because like he went into some heavy shit with that score. I'm like, God damn. Like
you know what he did? He read the screenplay and that opening monologue from Bruce Wayne. That's what put him in the right mindset.
Well, let's not do Born in the USA because that's an anti-America song, by the way.
It's not really, yeah, exactly. It kind of defeats the purpose of what you're trying to go for, but you know, it's a good shot.
Which was actually by Jerry Goldsmith, the Star Trek Next Generation score, which was taken from the motion picture by
that guy was also underrated for the 20th century.
Oh, Jerry Goldsmith he is one of the many goats. Like I know John Williams gets a lot of love and deservedly so. But Jerry Goldsmith, my guy, speaking of First Blood, holy shit, First Blood, amazing. Rudy, amazing. I would say motion picture, even though the movie's not that great from what I've heard.
He even did I love the Stargate franchise, one of probably my favorite sci-fi franchise, and he did the music for that movie too, which kind of played into the TV show stuff. And yeah, no, it's just great.
I have Adagio in D minor on my playlist. That is such a great. It's just like so heavy and like so like foreboding again. But like you know what? If Michael Giacchino like these very light and breezy scores and then do like the Batman and just go super dark, just showcasing his range as a composer. I think John Murphy can do the same. Like I don't, again, as I've said, I don't envy him because he has major shoes to fill in terms of not one, but two extremely excellent composers then but you know what? I know he can do it because I know he's talented. So like, but again, it's still a lot. It's very, foreboding for him. Like you have it's just like I just can't talk because I can't like imagine the feelings of just like you gotta fucking succeed John Williams and Hans
And
Zimmer.
Hans Zimmer. It's like he's gonna have to make his own theme that feels essentially Superman and iconic enough, but it can't necessarily be the same thing as what's been done before.
Yes,
Because
because
DC has leaned on that, John Williams score more and more heavily in recent years because they clearly felt like Man of Steel wasn't like bringing
right.
it, even if though it was great. I think the reaction that it got out of a lot of people, they were like, Superman for us is the John Williams, like that's the score, the ba 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 ba
I
ba
think
ba, like
I think
Superman.
Hans Zimmer has
So
like because
it's
like
just so much. It's the heart behind it.
it's like
It's
yeah
just
because it literally feels like a heartbeat. Like it's so
it's
like
just
heavy
yes, yeah.
because it like I feel like what's so good about the John Williams score, it's like very heavy on like bombastic
Mm-hmm.
brass, while like the Hans Zimmer score is like super heavy percussion, and it's like it's two different sounds, but two exemplary sounds for such an iconic character. And I hope he doesn't do too much brass or too much percussion. Like maybe goes into more winds. That would be like like sort of like flying through the air, kind of breezy sort of vibe of like heavy on like flutes and clarinets and piccolos. That could be a really good like idea for like just like you're flying through the air just like Superman. That would be a really good way to take the score. Again, I'm not going to tell him how to do his job because he's been doing this for decades. So like I don't want to say I know more than you, but I'm
And
just
he's
saying like
already worked with James Gunn before many times.
yeah.
The Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, and I believe he worked on like the earlier Guardians movie too, the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So him and James Gunn very much vibe, if you want to say that. And so to that end, I think it's going to be a good collaboration. But let's not get it twisted. This Superman score is probably the biggest thing he's ever done in his career, and he's got to
Oh
get
yeah.
that right. And he really does. I mean, I think we were originally talking about the whole James Gunn on VFX situation.
Yeah.
So just to kind of
Sorry, we
bring
went on
back
side
that,
tangents. That's how it usually
no, I mean
happens.
it's great, and you know what? I think the VFX work that you saw a lot of practical elements when they were filming this movie. There's of course still a lot of stuff that's going to be done with CGI and with like set extensions, wire work where that they have to remove all those wires that are being used to like put these actors in the air and stuff. There's a lot of stuff that will happen in post production, a lot of elements to be added, but they have basically a year to do it. And James Gunn has made it very clear that's going to be his approach. They want to respect the VFX artists. They want to give them enough time to do their jobs and do it well. And then at the end of the day, that's going to result in a better movie overall, not just for Superman, and not even just for Supergirl, but for everything that they do. As long as James Gunn is the CEO and the man in charge over at DC. And hey, Caleb, thanks for dropping in. Say hi to you there in the chat.
Lenny being like, I'm sure he was okay until you started talking. That's how it usually is. People are okay until I start talking, and then it just gets worse from there. So,
and Lenny's like, you're piling the pressure, mate. Yeah, and this.
oh dude, yeah, like Lenny, fucking John Murphy's watching this shit. Like, really? he's off doing the score right now. He's not fucking on YouTube. Get out of here.
Yeah, and but by the way, Caleb with a comment. I want a scene where the citizen of Metropolis temporary turn on. Superman and Clark goes back to his apartment, lies down on his bed, an American Dream. I don't know if that's necessarily
KTO is. Who was that?
It's like a newer. But hey, Lenny, you and I are on the same wavelength, man. That Stargate score is beautiful. That it goes like from back then, like those guys. I don't think they get enough credit because we all think about like John Williams is the one name that comes to mind, but there's so many other people out there, including the likes of John Murphy doing their work. But yeah, Van Halen, Atomic Punk for Soup's theme. Good ideas, but I think they probably want something that's original and orchestral. So, yeah, good idea though, Man of Steel Magnolias. Great name. Just yeah. But okay, let's keep the ball rolling here, guys. We do have to move on to other news. There's so much to get through, man. So much to get through. So I don't want to spend too much time on this one though, because it isn't really something that there's not much to go on here, but I do want to share it, John. There is a new TV spot that got put out there for the Penguin. It's coming out, of course. Now it's what, days away? Is it like it's a month away, right? A month
Exactly
away.
1 month.
Exactly 1
Exactly
month
1
from
month.
today, September 19th, we're gonna get the Penguin. It's coming out. It's gonna have an 8 episode run on HBO. It's an HBO original. You can watch it on Max. We recently talked about last week that they're gonna be airing it again and again and again all weekend long after it debuts later. I think it's on a Thursday that it
Mhm.
releases, right?
Yes, I
And then
believe so.
all weekend you can watch it on HBO. It's gonna be playing, and so to that end, John, what is your level of excitement for the Penguin? Is this a show now that you're starting to see the marketing ramp up? You're starting to see the character
Yeah.
posters. What are your thoughts on like, what are you most excited about, especially knowing that this show is gonna literally, not just figuratively, literally bridge the gap between the first Batman movie and the second one?
Good. I'm sorry, but I'm looking at this shot. This is an interesting shot right here of him. This
Mm-hmm.
looks like a flashback because his face doesn't look as scarred. Like you know
Right.
how he has like kind of like his face like kind of looks like kind of scratched, like kind of like how you're scratching like pimples or something like that, and then you get like kind of holes in your face. It doesn't look like that here. It looks kind of normal here. So like I don't know if like the makeup changed or this is like an earlier scene, but I don't know. I just found that to be interesting. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think it is a little bit more excited than I just that first trailer I just found to be like very, kind of
I
unimpressive.
liked it. I know
Like it
you
wasn't
didn't
like
like it,
bad.
but
It
I
was just like,
liked
oh, it
it.
just looks like another.
Yeah.
But here I just feel like, you know what? If it is another just crime drama, I'm like, you know what? It'll probably be a fucking good one. So like,
It's
I'm excited
HBO.
for it.
It's HBO. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh Colin Farrell looks great. Under all that goddamn makeup. Maybe I just misremembered the movie because he doesn't look quite as scarred as I remember from the movie where he's got like holes in his maybe just the makeup wasn't as good, but like I don't know, just like I found that to be interesting. But yeah, I think it looks good. Like I feel like I mean, as long as we get a better penguin than the fucking shitty ass one from Batman Cape Crusader, I'm
I
good. Like
Dude, I think we got a great Penguin already in the Batman, and I think they're
yeah,
just
so
building on
like
top of that. He's
yeah.
literally walking back into the Iceberg Lounge a week after Gotham gets flooded. So, and then
Yeah.
it's he's all about raising his profile in the city. He's trying to take over the Falcone family's basically legacy, or like how are you gonna describe it? And on his way
Like,
up,
just
he
like that
brings
typical
Sophia along.
Scarface rise to power, and you know
Yeah,
what? I'll take that.
sorry,
Like, fuck it.
and I saw recently there's a quote, there's like, Sophia Falcone and him are having dinner, and she's like, a lot of people underestimate you, but I don't, which is a very typical to see that's a very typical thing you hear. But it's
Yeah, but
in a
even
mobster movie,
then,
but it's just like a chip on his shoulder. You get a sense that this guy has ambition, and he's gonna try to get his,
because I
and
think
no
she
matter
wants
what.
to be like, oh, look, I know how fucking crazy this guy is, and I need to give
Yeah.
because it's like I feel like it's a good manipulation tactic. Like she's like, okay, I know this guy. This guy wants a lot of shit, but I'm like, I can't
Mm-hmm.
let him have my family. I can't let him have like the underbelly of Gotham's underworld. Like I can't let him do that. So like I gotta fucking use him until I get what I fucking want. And I that's the vibe that Sophia Falcone has in this show. I feel like what we've gotten of her, and it just, it's intriguing and very like I wish there was a little bit more like of that fantastical idea, but I know the Batman isn't like that. It's less fantastical. It's more.
Very grounded, and in this noir sense, but it's still very grounded. You're not gonna see like Mr. Freeze, the Arnold Schwarzenegger version of Mr.
Yeah.
Freeze, show up anytime soon.
Freeze wow.
Um, allow me to break the ice, or something like that. I don't know. September 19th, The Penguin. It's coming out soon. Let us know what you guys think about this. Is this a show that you're getting more and more excited about the more you see about it, the more
Mhm.
posters they put out there? They had a big presence at Comic-Con, and now they're putting out more TV spots, so that there's a lot to be excited about for the world of DC in general. Speaking of which, there's been some rumors going around, John, and we've been teasing this all show about it's coming up, coming up. Now let's talk about it. Let's talk about this story. It's a rumor. It's very much a big grain of salt rumor, and even in this post itself by Comic Basics, they're like nothing is confirmed because no shit. But there's rumors flying around apparently that Rose Byrne could be the DCU's next Wonder Woman. She of course played Maura McTaggart in X-Men First Class, and then she returned in X-Men Apocalypse in a lesser capacity, but because she
Yeah.
was a much bigger part of the X-Men First Class movie. What do you
Mhm.
think about the idea of Rose Byrne? I mean, she recently had that, I forget the name of that show. She had a really good show on the Apple TV Plus, which just finished this run. It's like a one name title I'm forgetting, but she was basically this, housewife who, ends up going to like trying to basically having a midlife crisis of some sort, and then finds,
Right.
a new um life, like going to I think it was like a Pilates thing or yoga. And basically, she becomes like this instructor and has her whole empire, a fitness empire that she creates around it. It was a great show. I'm gonna remember the name of the show. But what do you think about her joining the DC? Is she somebody who you think can pull off the role? Obviously, following in the footsteps of Gal Gadot, who had a physicality about her. I mean, the name of the show, by the way, is Physical on Apple TV Plus. If you haven't seen
Right.
it, go check out Rose Byrne out
Right.
on Physical on Apple TV Plus. But do you think she has the physicality? I think she's a great actress. She can pull off the acting part. Do you think she has the physicality to pull off like the all the fighting sequences that she'll have to do as Wonder Woman, or do you think we will
Always
even need
learn.
to do that because we'll get a different kind of Wonder Woman than what Gal Gadot did?
Yeah, I think well, considering she's like the best fighter in the DCU, like in the DC universe, so I think she would kind of need to like really fight. And I think she's like a good age. Like I think she's like in her she's in her early 40s. I think if like you want like a slightly older like Wonder Woman, more like one that's like been around the block, you already have like a Batman that's already kind of a veteran. Um I think we'll be sure to check it out. I think she would be a good choice. She's kind of got the vibe for it. She's Australian. I know that, and then she is okay. Um, I think she kind of has the vibe for it. I don't know if she would be like the best choice, but obviously she would need to bulk up. She would need to like start fighting. Like if Jennifer Garner can come back as Elektra and just like kick so much ass in Deadpool and Wolverine, then I'm sure and nobody liked for even in the original Daredevil, nobody fucking liked her Elektra. Like, come on, nobody liked that movie. Nobody liked her in that movie. No, nobody. But like, she came back and she was like apparently a really great part of Deadpool and Wolverine. So like, a major surprise could come from anywhere. And I would think Rose Byrne is a great actress. I think she could definitely. I mean, it's definitely like a different vibe of like getting someone who can actually act. On like Gal Gadot, who like I like her a bunch, but she's a model. She's a she's was like Mrs. Rayleigh and all that shit. So like she's very beautiful. Like she was like they were going for like model Amazonian look, which is like
She's gonna
fair.
be the Wicked Witch in that new Cinderella movie, right? So,
No, she's wow, so much wrong with that sentence.
did
Jesus.
I just mix up my?
Wow.
I'm mixing
Okay, first
Wicked
off,
with.
Wicked
I'm
Witch
sorry,
from Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of
It's
Oz.
not a
I know I
Cinderella
made that
movie. That was
mistake.
the evil stepmother, and it's Snow
Okay,
White.
Snow
Like,
White. So
wow.
much wrong with that
Like,
statement. I'm
so
sorry.
much wrong.
I'll
Jesus
I'll
Christ.
take
You got
myself
like
off camera
17
for a bit.
different
I'll go.
franchises mixed up. Anyway. But yeah, I think Rose Byrne could be like be all end all. I think Rose Byrne could be good. So you know what? Fucking Tom Cruise is fucking doing it, still doing his own stunts, and he's like 67. Like, all right, like it's fine. It's like, all right, you're just saying that because she's a woman. You don't think she can handle it. Like, get the fuck out of here with that. I'm just kidding. I like, you know what? I think she'll be fine. Like, if I know this is nothing confirmed, it's probably bullshit. It's most 90% bullshit, probably. But like, I think like if this is like the vibe of the actress they're going for, I think that would be awesome. Like, I think, um, I think Andrea Arjona, I think her name was. She was in Andor. She was in Good Omens. I know a lot of people are fan casting her. I think she would be good. And but the thing is, you can get like any woman of any age because like she's like, well, at least since the New 52, she's a demigod. So like she doesn't age, like she's part god. So like you can pretty much get anybody of any age to play Wonder Woman and it would be fine because it works. So like you could get someone who's like older veteran look in their 40s, or you could even go younger. You could go anything. So I feel like I know Jamie Alexander was fan casted a lot. I know Kobe Smulders was fan casted a lot. And since her Marvel character is dead now, she's open to fucking do DC stuff now. So, I mean Nicholas Hoult, no more X-Men, no more Beast. So he's like, fuck it, I'll be Lex Luthor now.
Maybe
But
he'll
yeah.
come back with Secret Wars, but outside of that, yeah.
Yeah, I think Diane Guerrero could be good. She could be a good I wish she would do something a little bit more I think she has more range than just doing Wonder Woman. I would love to see her more like do something like a range. I would love to see her as a live action Green Lantern. Oh my god, I'm completely blanking on her name. The newest Green Lantern. Oh my god, she's my favorite Green Lantern. What the fuck? Why can't
Jessica
I?
Cruz.
Yeah, Jessica Cruz. Jesus Christ, I was
Yeah.
like Jane. I'm like I kept thinking of Jane because she played Crazy Jane. It's like no, Jessica Cruz. Love Jessica Cruz. She voiced her in Justice League versus the Fatal Five, which was not a very good
Mm-hmm.
movie. But I would love to see her in live action form. I think she could do that very well. I think she could do one. I think she could do a lot. Like I would love to see her in the DCU in live action because I think she was great as Crazy Jane. I think she was great in a lot of projects. And yes, Adria Arjona. I think that's how you pronounce. I'm probably
I
mispronouncing.
think it's Audrey Arjona, but yes,
But
yes,
yes, that's who I
exactly.
was talking about.
Yes.
I know so many people have fan cast her, but the thing is, like I think she would do a good job. But it's kind of similar to Alan Ritchson and Jensen Ackles. I've seen her so much that I'm just kind of like you can't see me. No, I'm just kind of like a little numb to it. Like, okay, pick somebody else. Like, at least I remember one guy when they were like Jake Gyllenhaal. I'm like, oh god, thank God, a different fucking Batman. Jesus Christ, because everyone's Alan Ritchson, Jensen Ackles, and Glenn Powell. It's like pick somebody different for fucking Christ's sake. And when somebody was, I'm like Jake Gyllenhaal, that's different, and that would be a much better choice than any three of those guys. So Adriana Arjona would be better, but just like so many people pick her that I'm like, all right, let's, get that the fuck out of here a little bit. But yeah, I think Rose Byrne would be fine, but I do think there are much better choices out there than her. But
I mean,
considering this
look,
is probably bullshit, it doesn't matter.
it's yeah, it's definitely a rumor that for all we know has no basis in reality. But I will say this: I think like the whole ageist argument is pretty false in a lot of ways because you don't
Yeah,
know what this character is going to look like in the DCU, what Wonder Woman is going to be like in the new DCU. We obviously know what Wonder Woman was when Gal Gadot played it in the DCEU. There's a chance still. I mean, Gal Gadot seems to think that she's still got the character and in the bag, and she may return. But obviously, we have seen other actors make the jump, like John Cena's Peacemaker, and of course, you've got Amanda Waller coming in with Viola Davis still playing the character, and many of the other Peacemaker cast members. There's gonna be Joel Dueñas still playing Blue Beetle from the DCEU, so you could see that Gal Gadot continues to play the character. That if they were to bring in Rose Byrne, I mean, if you guys have not seen the show Physical, that's a great. I mean, she can. I think as far as the physicality of it, yes, on the surface, you're like, okay, can she? But she's not going to be doing her own, stunts. Of course, no, most actors don't. But can
hmm
she pull off the look? I think she can. Does she have the acting chops? I more than think she has the acting chops. As far as accents go, I don't care if she sounds British, American, or Greek, or Middle Eastern, or whatever. I think that will ultimately depend on how you treat the character, how you write the character, what that's going to look like. Is she going to have a movie? Is she going to show up in a Justice League film? Is she going to show up in the Paradise Lost? Because that show takes place like 1,000 years in the past. So at the end of the day, I think like if you just base the argument on age alone, I think that is such a false argument to begin with because age matters only so much because it's there's plenty of actors out there who might be in their 20s or 30s, but they'll play like a teenager and they can pull
right.
it off. And vice versa, and all the other way around. Like you might be playing a character that's in your 40s, and you might be in your 30s as an actor, and it's just because that's what you come across as. I mean, Chris Pine grows out a beard, and the dude looks like he's 55. Shaves it off, he looks like he's 33. People can, there's such a thing as hair and makeup, right? Like we were just talking about, Colin Farrell as a penguin. You can do a lot
A
today
lot of stuff. Yeah.
with hair and makeup, and obviously the acting ability. I think Rose Byrne is probably as good a candidate at this point, not really knowing much about the character, as Adria Arjona or Diane Guerrero that Man of Steel Magnolia suggested from Doom Patrol. Anybody really, I don't really mind. I think these are all good options. Where we ultimately end up will depend again on, like James Gunn like to say, once a project is greenlit, you get into pre-production, you've got your scripts, you know what this character is meant to kind of look and feel like, and how they're gonna be involved in the larger story arc, not just their own story, but the larger DC story, the DCU story. Then we'll get to see what comes of it. So until then, it's good to speculate. I did want to run another fan casting by you before we go into our next story, John, because
Sure.
earlier in the show, I think Lenny was the one suggesting this. What about Emma Darcy? Because we were talking about Game of Thrones, and of course she's in the House of the Dragon. What about Emma Darcy to play Allura Zor-El? Do you think that could be potentially a good casting? I mean, guys, let us know in the chat too, guys and gals. What do you think about that potentially? Allura Zor-El, like how do you think she could figure? And do you even think we're gonna get that character? Because I don't believe we have heard anything about that character being involved in either Superman or Supergirl yet. But
I don't think they are old enough. Like they're 32 years old, so I don't think they're old enough to really be the mother of like a who is supposed to be like 20, 21 years. I believe like Neely Alcock is like late teens, early 20s. I understand like again, makeup, all that shit, you can make them look older, but I don't know. I think that would be kind of funny. That would be like, I get it, because they played the older version of Millie Alcock's character later
yeah,
on, all that stuff. It would be like a funny tongue-in-cheek thing, but I don't think it would be like a serious consideration. I think they would have to be older. I would say like maybe early 40s to make, obviously, makeup and all that stuff. But like, I think whoever would play Allura Zor-El or Allura Inzi, depending on the version, I think they would have to be a little bit older. But that would be funny, but I don't think that would work. That's just my opinion.
yeah, it would be interesting though, but it depends on, of course, whether we get to see like a flashback or however this she might be involved in the story, the character. I'd imagine it would depend on just how much of Kara Zor-El's past they're gonna want to show in the Supergirl movie, or it very much as a here and the now kind of film. Because I believe Allura Zor-El kind of perishes along with Krypton, right? She doesn't really make it, or I guess
No,
it might depend on the version of Supergirl that we're talking about. But I mean, hey, Emma
yeah,
Darcy is a great actress. She's got 2 more seasons of House of the Dragon to do. We know that the show ends in after season 4 now, so she could potentially take part in Supergirl and then be part of the franchise down the road if that ends up becoming Allura Zor-El becomes a character that we get to see again and again. But of course, we did. I forget the name of the actress, but we did have um, somebody play that. I think they had actually 2 different actresses play Allura Zor-El in the Supergirl show. They recast her at some point.
they
So
did. It was Laura
we can,
Benanti at first, and
yeah,
then they recast her in like season 3, I think.
yeah. Well, I mean, hey, we'll get to see. Good shout though, Lenny. I think given that she's already in the house of HBO, House of the Dragon, I'm sure Emma Darcy can eventually move across to DC. She's already working in the Warner Brothers lot, so we'll get to see. Maybe James Gunn would not be wrong to cast her in a lot of different roles for DC.
Hmm.
Now, of course, speaking of James Gunn, we have been talking about VFX and everything, and what he's doing with Superman, Supergirl. But Creature Commandos, that's the first project that launches this new cinematic universe. It comes out later this year. I'm forgetting the exact date, John, but I think you might remember when we do have a date now, pretty much for when Creature
I don't think we have
Commandos
a
is
date yet.
released.
It's just
Oh, we
December.
don't? Is it
We don't have
December?
it.
Okay,
We
so they
don't have
didn't
a
tell us
specific.
what day in December. Okay,
Yeah,
so it is
just the.
coming out this year. It is coming out in December. Um, so with that said, James Gunn, of course, is ramping up marketing for that as he is for all these other projects. He wrote the episodes for Creature Commandos. I'm sure it was a big part of the production for Creature Commandos, and it's
Hmm.
going to be the project that kicks off the DCU. He's recently announced that there's a bunch of new comic book covers that are going to be released for Creature
Yes.
Commandos. Do you think this is again just more of an indication of what we are in store for with the new show, or is this completely separate in its own thing? And what are your reactions to the artwork, this fantastic artwork that we're getting here? I think it lines up very much with the trailer for Creature Commandos in terms of
Yeah.
character designs. What are your thoughts on these?
Oh, it looks great. Looks fantastic. I think the artist did a lot of really good job. Hunter Iggy, we're digging the Nina Mazursky fishwoman thing. That's his kink. We're not going to yuck your yum. We don't kink shame here. But yeah, I think they look pretty damn good. I love Weasel there. He looks really funny. But yeah, I think they look pretty awesome. I feel like that they're gonna definitely be. It's more gonna be more um fantastical and all that. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. And these, this amazing artwork by the cover artist. You can kind of see them on the side there. Um, all credit goes to them. Did a wonderful job. I don't know what. I don't think there's a Creature Commandos comic book out right now, so Maybe they'll release like a mini series or something because it's only 4. So maybe it's like a 4-issue mini series before the official, show starts. Maybe it's a prequel. Maybe it's just like an Elseworld story. Maybe it's like something else. I don't know, but whatever it is, I'm sure maybe I'll read it. If it's good enough. As long as it's not written by Tom King, then it should be good. But yeah, I think great artwork. Credit to those artists. CD Anda, Lyrics Art, Giram March, and Digi and Dominic 73. Credit goes to them. You did great. You did a great job, guys.
Yeah, James Gunn tagging all of the artists, of course, and yeah, if you are interested in Creature Commandos, you want something new for your shelf of comic books, and you can definitely add this in there. The show releases in December, and I'm sure we'll have a lot of Creature Commandos related marketing materials, as well as like these tie-in comic books, maybe that will give you more context for what the show is all about when the show comes out, or closer to when the show comes out in December. Until then, we have a lot to look forward to. We've talked about the Penguin, we've talked about Joker Folie à Deux. There's, of course, if you like Batman Cape Crusader, it's out on Amazon. If you like Kite Man, hell yeah, we're going to be reviewing episode 7 on Thursday. There's lots and lots more to talk about. Even beyond that, there's going to be other projects. And I'm sure we're going to dive into, any new breaking news regarding Lanterns casting, which, hey, you cast in pre-production, James Gunn says. And I bet you that show is at least in pre-production now. So we're going to get into that. But John, before we finish up, as we always do on the show, we do talk about the comments from you guys. You've been, of course, commenting throughout the show. Thanks so much for stopping by, and participating in the conversation, because of course it's not fun at all if you guys are not engaged, and so we're glad that you engage with us, not only in the live chat, but if you're not watching us live, you can always just drop your comments down below when you watch the video. A lot of you do that. So John, you picked out a couple of comments today to talk about, and I think this will strike up a couple of good conversations. So let's start with the first one. Ray J365 first last 7. That's a quite the name there. I don't know if that's your password or if that's your username, but you said, consider this mercy is a bar. This is, of course, a reference to Batman versus Superman, where Superman first confronts Batman as like, the bat is dead. Bury it. Consider this mercy. I believe those are the exact words of Clark Kent to Bruce Wayne. And then, he's like, tell me, do you bleed? And then the Comic-Con crowd goes wild. I just remember that trailer coming out. I'm like, oh, holy shit. And then, of course, the movie comes out and it has very divisive.
And
anyway, John,
and we moved on.
I personally think the Ultimate Cut is still pretty damn good, and it does.
The Ultimate Cut's much better. I will say I like it better than Man of Steel, which is not saying much, but I enjoy it for what it is. This Frankenstein's monster of like, let's dump 17 different comic stories into one movie and see how it turns out. And it didn't turn out well, but it's still a fun time.
So I wasn't on this episode. I think Catriona and you were talking about this. What? No? Okay. All right. You don't want to? Okay. All right.
No,
I was just saying.
No. I'm saying no. I was joking that you're saying let's move on from your garbage take. Let's talk about the comment. I'm sorry. Bad
no,
joke.
No. I don't have a garbage. Dude, don't question my takes. I'm telling you, Guy Gardner is gonna bite the dust.
I'm saying you think I have a garbage take. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. Well, you do, but all right. Let's move on. Consider this mercy. What was the context behind this comment? What was going on? I wasn't on the show. I'm curious.
If I had to say the only things I remember, again, those were like went on for like almost as long as this anyway. But if I had to think, it was either something about the Snyderverse, consider it dead, you motherfuckers, like it's dead, shut the fuck up, or it was something about like cynicism in comic book movies, where I was just like, I was so done with I'm so done with cynicism and nihilism in comic book movies. It's like, it's not 2005 anymore. Let's move on from this shit. Like, we don't need everything to be like super dark and super gritty nowadays, unless the context like works for it. Like if it's like a Batman or a Punisher movie or show, then all right, that makes sense. But I can't get on it. It's just boring. So it's like, consider it mercy. It's dead. Like cynicism in comics, it's dead. So those are the only two things I could think of. I would have to go back and rewatch it. Maybe I'll comment. Maybe I'll reply to this and say, oh, Yeah, that's what it is. But yeah, I'll make sure to double check that because I don't remember what I was saying. It was probably a Snyderverse comment because it's funny. It's fun to shit on the Snyderverse because it makes the really annoying extremist fans very all hoity-toity and annoyed. And I'm not talking about people who can actually have a real discussion about the Snyderverse. I'm talking about the annoying 1% extremist fans that are assholes. Those are a vocal minority, and we don't associate with those guys. They are annoying haters that hate anything that isn't Zack Snyder, isn't Zaddy, as we coined it.
Yeah, we
So
didn't coin. One of you guys coined it, but it's
I
fun.
had somebody come. I forget what it was, but yeah, somebody coined it, and it was because the thing is, Snyder. If you're a Snyder fan, you're not automatically an asshole, you know. There's tons of Snyder fans out there that are really good people that can have a discussion. They're like, you know what, I like these movies.
I had a really good
because
time with those films.
Exactly. Like talking to you is fine. You're normal. You're a human being. You're not just a ball of hate. Like this like 1% vocal minority that just hates everything that isn't Zack Snyder because they're not DC fans. They're not they're not nothing like that. They just want to see like Zack Snyder prosper and then fuck everybody else scorch earth. And that's not what this is about. It just rubs me the wrong way. It's same thing with like the people
No,
that like tout
I hear
Disney
you.
that are like, oh my
Yeah.
God, if I sacrifice my firstborn child to Kevin Feige, maybe Brave New World will be good. It's like, no, that's not how that works, man. Like again, but that's like a vocal minority. That's like a 1%. They seem louder than they are. They seem like a bigger contingent than they are.
Well, that's
When they're really
yeah,
just a small
vocal.
group of
They're
assholes that
very
just want
vocal.
to make
Yeah.
everyone as miserable as they are. That's what it is. And I got to
Yeah.
reiterate that because people think, oh, you're shitting on. No, I'm not shitting on actual fans. Actual fans are awesome and cool people. None of this toxic fandom bullshit. Because I hate that term. I hate people who say that, like throw fans under the bus. It's like a trend now. Oh, the fans suck. They're horrible. It's like, no, just the people who send like death threats on Instagram. Those are the assholes. But they're not a lot. It's not a lot of people. People think they are because they're vocal and they're loud, but they're not. They're teeny tiny, just like their wieners because they have to overcompensate. So
um. Yes. Well, while you were ranting, Hunter Iggy asking
yes.
Liana
Who is this?
Ramirez for Wonder
Liana
Woman.
Ramirez. I don't know who that is. I'm sorry.
I,
She looks good.
I'm not as familiar with her work. I mean, it looks like she does a lot of horror movies.
Yeah,
Again, it
cool with
depends
me.
on
I'm the horror guy,
the
so
character
I'll
that
take
they're
it.
writing, and whether she, again, she probably looks the part. Whether she's a good fit will depend on what the director and the screenwriters and producers come up with for the movie. But good shout, Hunter.
She
By
looks
the
a bit
way,
young, but like I don't know. Like I
yeah. Well,
mean, what
again,
kind
it
of
depends on which direction we go with the character. But in the meantime, I mean, Ron 601051, you're asking, or you're saying that the only comic book you think would be perfect for Snyder would be Spawn. It would be it would certainly be a good option. I don't think you can go wrong with. I think that the visual style of Zack Snyder probably fits a character like Spawn very well. So I wouldn't
Yeah,
mind seeing that
there was also this
necessarily.
really small uh I forget I gotta remember the name. Oh, it was called Brat Pack. It's a very small comic book. It was made by the guy who co-created Swamp Thing, I believe, the character of
Yeah.
Swamp Thing. It's called Brat Pack, by Rick Veitch. And Comic Tropes did a video on it. I would recommend it. It's essentially this really fucking dark, and I mean dark comic book. Like make it's kind of like if you think like The Boys was bad, then this is like worse. It's like the every single type. Yeah, I mentioned Jamie Alexander. I've seen her for years.
Which is great, like and she was in Thor, right? She's one of the four
She's Lady Sif,
horsemen.
yeah. And
Lady
if they're
Sif,
not
yes.
going to have her
It'd
back,
be a
then
perfect step up. I think she's been auditioning for that role her entire time in the MCU. I think that'd be a great casting.
But yeah, Brad Pack is sort of like it fits. I'll just say it fits Zack Snyder to a fucking T. It's so 90s and so like stupidly edgy. It's ridiculous, and it's like trying to be like Watchmen for sidekicks, but it's like it's just so overly dark and edgy. I'm like, oh, that would be perfect for Zack Snyder if he would did it, but he would like remove all of the irony from it and just make it like play it straight. I'm like, I could see that. Like him doing Brat Pack. Look it up. It's a very weird comic. It's like every
what's
like
ironic? I think
stereotype
Zack
of
Snyder's
comic book
production
characters is in there too. Yeah.
Like Zack Snyder's his production company is called Rat Pack, so it would be sort of, unless I'm thinking of Brett Ratner, I don't know. I just think like the names, the irony of it.
No, Brian. Well,
Or is
Brian
that
Singer.
Brett Ratner, or is it Brett? I might be mixing
Anyway,
those
Brian
up.
Singer's is Bad Hat Harry. That's taken from
Yeah.
Jaws, but it might be Rat Pack is. Isn't that Quentin? No, that's not Quentin Tarantino. That's whatever.
But okay, I did,
whatever.
by the way.
Band Apart is Quentin Tarantino. Hold on, I'll look it up. But yeah, you continue.
Yeah. I did want to address this comment from Lenny because I think he's asking a very good question here. Should Wonder Woman be bisexual in the DCU, and would you object to Paradise Lost having lesbian relationships depicted? I think that would be fantastic because I think that's, again, representative of, you've got a whole island of just warrior women, right? Like they even hinted at it in Wonder Woman, right? Like you see
It is
Trevor and
yes, you were correct.
Brett Ratner. Is that what it was? Yeah, I think I was misspoken there. Yeah,
it's
but
Brett
anyway,
Ratner and James Packer are the two guys who have because
but to address
Packner,
there it is. I mean, and Lenny, like, just saying, I think in the first Wonder Woman movie, they were like, she's like, you don't need men to to basically go about like, I mean, it was more than hinted at in the first Wonder Woman movie, and I think, of course, logically it would make sense, and also would be from a representational standpoint the way to go. I mean, we live in the 21st century now. I think you have to, at that point. I think it's an opportunity that where if you don't depict that, then I think you're sort of missing a big chunk of what that would look like. I think it fits. It works.
Like I mean, people like think of like oh, it's like a new thing where it's like Greeks and Romans were fucking having orgies every other day. Like a friend of mine who is like a history teacher, by the way, he's a history nerd, and he's like, and I don't know if he coined this or he found it, but he's always like, remember, Greeks invented the orgies, Romans invited the women. So, if you're going by that, then it's like, it just makes sense. Like, and the character has been pretty much, whether it's undertones or outright stated, she's technically been bisexual for decades. So it's like, it makes sense. Like, I remember same friend who, my history nerd friend, he said like what Wonder Woman 84 should have been. Like, we shouldn't have gotten Cheetah immediately. She should have had a relationship, like a sexual relationship with Barbara Minerva. She should have been like the replacement for Steve. Like, she finally moved on, and then she becomes a villain in the next movie, and then that would have made the fall that much worse. And I'm like, that's like a perfect idea. That would have been so much better than the rushed movie we got. So I think that would have been really interesting. And then, like, because I mean, it's pretty much been, I mean, obviously, I don't want like fucking like 10-minute sex scenes. Like, obviously, you could just imply it. You maybe have a boobie here and there. I don't want it to just be like porn or anything like that. Like, have a story, have it make sense. Okay. Like, if I want to watch porn, I'll go to Pornhub. But like, obviously, like, just like have it service. As long as you're serving the story, it's not like an agenda-driven thing. Then you should be cool. Like, it's written into the story well. Then that's fine. Like, and
Wonder Woman, it's gonna be an HBO show. It's probably gonna be like, rated, what is it, TVM or something. So they'll have the ability to go in all those. They literally said it's gonna be the Game of Thrones of the DCU. So
yeah,
and ultimately, like I said, from a representational standpoint, it makes all the sense in the world for any part of the DCU to be, certainly the Themyscira, which Paradise Lost is going to cover. And like you said, the character in the comics has been, bisexual, either whether it's outwardly bisexual or just implied. It's been a part of the character's identity and the culture she comes from. So I would love to see that. I think that would be fantastic, and from there on, it just how she ties into the larger DCU, we will see where that goes. But I think they played it pretty safe. in the original Wonder Woman movie, and then they kind of really went away from exploring that idea even further because we didn't get much of Themyscira in Wonder Woman 1984, and even in the Justice League movies, it was only on the outer edges of it. The Amazons were really just there to fight battles and whatnot. But I would love to see more of that, and especially with Paradise Lost and the nature of that show and what it's trying to depict, I would love to see more of the relationships of these women on this island. And yeah, I think, Lenny, to answer your questions, I think we are both in agreement that yeah, we should definitely get to see
Mhm.
more of that. And I'm looking forward to that aspect of the show and to see that representation in the superhero genre that we still don't get enough of that. But yeah, and in the meantime, Hugo's like, give us Giganta, which I have no idea what that character is, John.
Oh
But
yeah, she's a
it's
character that she's like she can go from little to big. She's gigantic. She's
oh, okay,
the 50
okay,
like Attack of the 50-foot woman type of eyes. She can grow.
okay,
That she's essentially
okay,
giant man, but like a woman. That's essentially the
got
character.
it, got it.
Very yeah, she's like kind of like a fan favorite character.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. Ron, I think, put it accurately. If I'm going off you, it's like she's a massive chick. Okay, cool, cool. Got it, got it. But yeah, I mean, hey, that pretty much. Oh no, we have one more comment. Hold on, do we have one more comment? I feel like
Yes.
we sort of vent on a. Yeah, we
Yeah,
do.
we can.
Okay, we have one more comment to go through. So this is also from the episode, one of the episodes last week. YARC9, who I forget if you were in the live chat or not, but you definitely do check us out. So thank you again for leaving us that comment. He mentioned Batman Kid Crusader took inspiration from Gotham Central and Long Halloween and Year One Batman, and it made it feel fresh. What do you think about his take on it? Because I know
Yeah,
you're obviously
I could
you're not a
definitely
fan of
see
the show,
I could
but
definitely see
he
Gotham
seems to.
Central because 90 fucking percent of the show is about the Gotham Police Department and not about Batman, even though his name is in the goddamn title. Long Halloween, I can kind of see the vibe. Year One, a little bit. It's just like it's a beginning Batman, so people are like, oh, it's Year One, but it's mainly Gotham Central, which makes sense because I believe Brubaker and or Rucka worked on Gotham Central, so that makes sense. But it's just like, yeah, even though it does have inspiration from really great comics, doesn't automatically make it good. Like, for instance, like the new Superman movie, it's inspired by a shit ton of great comics. Will that make it automatically good? No. Is it hopeful? Yes, but that doesn't automatically make it good. Like, for instance, many stated, oh, the inspiration for Man of Steel was the John Byrne Superman, which is not that, it's not aged well. It's not that great. Secret Origin, which I have not read. I tried reading Man of Steel, the John Byrne like mini series that led into his comic book run. I tried to read it, I couldn't get into it. Maybe I'll try to read it again. But and then Secret Origin and then Birthright, and yeah, those comics are really good. Allegedly, I've never read them, but I've heard they're great. But just because, oh yeah, those are the inspiration for this character, does that make the movie good or the show good? No, it doesn't. So even though, okay, Gotham Central was the inspiration and Long Halloween and Year One, if that's the case, great. Those are great comics. Does that make the show good? No, because it's still horribly fucking written and half the time horribly acted. Like I will say that, like most of the people in the show were just not like Christina Ricci was great, Diedrich Bader was great, and maybe Hamish Linklater as Bruce Wayne. They were all fine, but the rest were just not good. Although, according to my friend who finally started watching it, he was like, apparently Arnold Flass is voiced by Uncle Ruckus from the Boondocks. So, that's funny, I guess. Like, I'll give them that. That's kind of amusing, but like, yeah, it's just like, just because they take inspiration doesn't mean it will be good or is good. So, like, is it hopeful? Yes, but like, I wish the greatness of those comics translated to the actual show because God knows it didn't. And don't get me wrong, if let's not get into that because then I'll go on another whole rant and we need to. It's 10:30 at night. Let's finish this shit. So yeah,
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, whatever the inspiration was, and usually with a lot of these projects, the inspiration comes from multiple different comics, and I think YRC, you were on point with that. Unfortunately, like John, you said, and again, it's an opinion. there's a lot of people out there who love this show, and I personally haven't had a chance to watch enough of it to give you an opinion. But I've got people on both ends of the spectrum telling me they love it, they hate it. Some people are like, yeah, it was good, but it wasn't really my cup of tea, or like it was sort of in the middle of the road. Whichever angle you come at it from, ultimately it's good to have another Batman project out there, because of course we've got the Penguin coming out later this year, and we may or may not get a Batman cameo in there with Robert Pattinson, whether he's dressed as Batman or he's just Bruce Wayne in his street clothes. It's good to see another animated Batman project. Batman Cape Crusader has already been greenlit for season 2. So if you're enjoying it, you get another season. If you're not a fan of it, then you don't have to watch it. There's so many other, Batman projects out there. There's even like anime with Batman coming out. Was it like Max, I think, right? Was it Batman something Samurai? But anyway, it's
yeah, Batman Ninja versus the Yakuza.
You're not going to be short on yeah, you're not going to be short on, Batman related content. So you can go check that out anytime. And we'll be covering it here on, when the new season comes out. We're going to talk about Batman Cape Crusader again. We're going to review it. But until then, guys, it's been great. Another great episode. Thanks so much for watching us live. For everybody who checked us out. So many of you guys. I mean, we have given you shout outs. Lenny, JB, Ron, Derpy, Hugo. We had, of course, Man of Steel Magnolias, Hunter Iggy, you got Fiona, there's Caleb, Kyle, everybody who was in the chat. And everybody, if you're watching us after we have been live and you're just watching us tomorrow, the day after, then drop your comments down below. I did put up a poll during the episode asking you guys, are you excited for the Penguin? Because that show starts literally a month from today, and 65% of you were excited for it. So I'm really glad that we are on the same page there. We are massively excited for it. John and I have both been enjoying all the
We are the Penguin.
Trailer. We are the Penguin. So hey, that show drops on September 19th. Until then, we're gonna enjoy Kite Man Hell Yeah. You got Batman Cape Crusader if you want to check that out. Speaking of Kite Man Hell Yeah, episode 7, I believe. We're reviewing that this Thursday. I believe Bridget might be back to talk to you about that, John. Tomorrow, Angelina, yourself, and I will be back at 12 p.m. Eastern time here to review Alien Romulus, to look at all the different Marvel news. Star Wars, The Acolyte got canceled. We're going to talk about DC, of course. We're going to have a DCU Daily episode alongside the show. So check back here tomorrow afternoon for that. And then the day after on Wednesday, we'll be going through all the breaking news in the world of DC, anything new that comes out, anything James Gunn talks about, any new piece of news with Lanterns, anything for Creature Commandos, Joker Fall You Do, the Penguin. There's so much coming up. Of course, Superman and Supergirl. So, we're just getting started here on DC Daily. Thanks so much for being a part of our community. Thanks for watching us live. If you haven't already, hit that like button. And then if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. That way, when we, have a new episode going up, and hit that notification bell. That way, when we go live, so you don't miss
comments.
But until
get that YouTube algorithm flowing in here.
Drop your fan cast for Wonder Woman down below. Let us know what you use.
Like Dua Lipa.
It's Dua.
Somebody fucking said Dua Lipa.
I think Ron was like, I think it's about the acting ability as well. I mean, there's I feel like we could do a whole episode dedicated to that. Alexander Daddario. I think there's plenty of great options out there.
Daddario would be,
and Rose Byrne, I still think would be a great pick, even if she, regardless of whether she gets picked for the role or not. But yeah, hey, we'll be back here tomorrow with another episode of Also Curious times DCU Daily, and then DCU Daily will continue to have new episodes Monday through Friday, and we'll see you next time on another episode of DC Daily. Until then, John, it's just so refreshing to see that the VFX in these new DCU projects are going to get the attention and the respect that they deserve, and we're looking forward to that. And I hope you guys are too. We'll see you next time here on DC Daily. Until tomorrow, John, have a good rest of your night. Lenny's already gone to bed, so should we. Okay. All right, see you guys tomorrow.